The following is brought to you by the People's National Party.
Make the trumpets play. Jamaican people want better. Economy coming like stormy weather. Ancestors are turning on them graves to get champion. We can do it together. When we look at the future of precipice, we see Jamaica needs the vision of the PNP. People said the bag of promises, them can't carry go shop. And the crime rate getting high, I wonder when it all goes now, comrades. Jamaican people want better. Economy coming like stormy weather. Ancestors are turning on them graves to get champion.
The proceeding was brought to you by the People's National Party.
Jamaica Diaspora Crime Intervention and Prevention Task Force, in association with the Global Jamaican Diaspora Council, presents on the 26th of July 2024 Jamaicans and Friends of Jamaica. Join us in conference as we speak against corruption, crime, poverty, failed healthcare, poor education, and injustice in Jamaica. This takes place on the 26th of July at 1320 Ellesmere Road, Ontario, Canada. This conference starts 3 till 10 p.m. Guest speakers on the day: Wayne Lonesome, Will Rattigan, Mystic Sensation, Herb Nelson Jr., Aromatic, Sister Maria, Jamaican Carlos, Dr. Rupert Francis, Jeffrey Tavares, and more. This is going to be a very important event for all Jamaicans and friends of Jamaica. Don't miss this event if you care about our country. Jamaicans in the diaspora, we can make a difference.
Hello, welcome. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to those in television land. Happy Friday to our silent supporters. Happy Friday to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope everyone had a wonderful and productive week. And as usual, looking forward to a wonderful and restful weekend. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Really appreciate everyone who's recently joined the movement. Thank you. And guys, remember, when you come in, thumbs up the live, share us out if you can. And if you if you're new to the channel, please show us some support by subscribing. It will be greatly appreciated. So tonight's topic is Andrew Holness acting more desperate. He senses defeat as we get closer to general election. And your host, as usual, Baron and Anne-Marie. So let me just go ahead and welcome those in the chat. Sonia, Truck Life, Morris Williams, Judith Livermore, Janet Jones, Don Mel, Blendon, Moya's Way, Andrew Fisher, Cooking with Miss Brown, Doris McCoy, Rosalie Ricketts, Carla Ibanks, Des Thomas, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. And without any delay, so I'm just going to hand over to Baron. Keith Salmon, welcome.
All right. Thank you, Wifey, for that precursor. As always, I want to say big thanks again to all of our subscribers. Right, we really appreciate the support, and we are just definitely being blessed with that. So of course, tonight is going to be very interesting as it relates to what is unfolding right in Jamaica, where the Prime Minister is concerned. Now, Mayor Swaby, right, has done extremely well as it relates to his first 100 days. And Mayor Swaby has just posted, right, a clip that I want to share with all the subscribers as well, and people in TV land, locally and in the diaspora. Of course, Mayor Swaby is doing what we call representational politics, and we are happy for that. And we're always happy in terms of following up on what Mayor Swaby, right, has been doing within his first 100 days. And he has accomplished a lot, quite a lot. So without any delay, just let me just share this clip that Mayor Swaby just posted. All right. All right, so that is it as it relates to the Crossroad Market, clean and pretty, right? You have running water, right, in all the restrooms, and yeah, that's what representation politics should feel like, right? As it relates to the previous mayor, right? We weren't getting that sort of representation. So it's night and day as it relates to, both representation, right? And we really appreciate Mayor Swaby, giving service to the Jamaican people that we truly deserve. And this is one of the reasons why we, voted for them, right? We need representation. And once again, I want to say a big thanks to you, Mayor Swaby. Big up yourself for that. All right.
Oh, sorry, today's National Olympics trip. Some people might be watching that.
Okay. So what I also want to get into, right, is the saga that is playing out as it relates to the DPP, right? So we are actually in day 4, and it relates to day 4, right? I think that we'll be getting some result as it relates to early as I think September, as it relates to the findings, and we were looking forward to that. But let me just play the clip and show you what is playing out where the DPP is concerned, and then we are going to break that down, right, for people to understand what is transpiring there. Without any delay, again, we are going to just bring forward that clip to from Dion Miller Jackson, and we want to say big up to Dion Miller Jackson for breaking it down to us, right, to provide better understanding. So without any delay, let us get to that clip, right, where Dion Miller Jackson is breaking down things for us as it relates to day 4, as it relates to the hearing regarding the DPP, right? See where that stands.
1 sec. Okay. Because it's a different title from what.
Government amend the constitution just to keep the DPP Paula Llewelyn in office. Well, that was one of the arguments being made on day 4 of the Court of Appeal hearing into the DPP retirement age case. What were the arguments? Stay tuned. People who said government is inefficient should look at what happened here. That was what was said by Mike Hilton, Queen's Counsel. He's representing opposition politicians Philip Paulwell and Peter Bunting in this case. What did he mean by that? He was talking about the way in which this Constitutional Amendment Act was passed. And I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. Now, Mr. Hilton was trying to convince the judges today that the constitutional amendment act that was passed to raise the retirement ages of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Auditor General, that was passed for an improper purpose. And he said improper purpose didn't mean fraudulent. It didn't mean that there was anything immoral going on. It just meant that something was done which was outside the scope of what was allowed. Now, Mr. Hilton says the undisputed evidence is that the government passed this act for the purpose of extending Ms. Llewelyn's time in office beyond which the Constitution would have allowed. What does he mean by that? Well, to explain that, we have to just back up a little bit. I know you've heard some of this before, but stay with me. It's important to remember it so you understand the arguments he's making. So February 2020, Ms. Llewelyn had written to the Public Services Commission and asked them to extend her time in office. She was supposed to retire in September 2020. She got a 3-year extension. And then in 2023, again, she wrote to the PSC in February asking for another extension. They said, no, the Constitution doesn't allow for a second extension. Now, Mr. Hilton says in that same letter in which they told her you can't get an extension because the Constitution only provides for one extension, he said the PSC also said we are going to start the process of looking for a new DPP. But he said that never happened. He said there's no evidence that there was any advertisement. There was no evidence that there was any attempt to start a search for a replacement for Ms. Llewelyn. Instead, what happened was that we got to July 25, 2023, when the government brought the constitutional amendment bill to Parliament, debated it, and passed it in the same day. Leader of opposition business in the House, Philip Paula, said he wasn't even at Parliament on that day because he didn't know this was going to happen. The bill went to the Senate on Friday, July 28, 2023, and the same thing happened. It was debated, table debated, and passed in the same day. And then the next working day, which was Monday, July 31, it was signed into law by the Governor General. This is what Mr. Hilton meant when he said to the court, anybody who thinks government is inefficient, just look and see what happened here. An amendment to the Constitution passed in less than a week. So he also said that an opposition senator had made a proposal, say, hey, why don't we push this bill back until January 2024 and pass it then, when Ms. Llewelyn would have already left office, would have already reached the retirement age, reached the end of the extension and retired. And he said the government just ignored that, refused to accept that, went ahead and passed the bill. So Mr. Hilton is saying that the dominant reason, the dominant purpose for the government passing this act was to allow Ms. Llewelyn to get an extension in office, which she couldn't get under the Constitution because the Constitution said no more than one extension. All right, so that was him trying to persuade the court that the government's purpose in passing this Constitutional Amendment Act was to benefit Ms. Llewelyn by giving her this extension in office. But he then now has another hurdle to clear. Was that, even if that was a purpose, was that an improper purpose? And he is arguing it was an improper purpose. Why? He says the Constitution lays down a process for giving an extension to the DPP. Because that process couldn't be followed because she had already got one extension, he said Parliament now was going around the Constitution to try to give her an extension. As a reminder, what the Constitution says is that for an extension, the Prime Minister should consult with the leader of the opposition and then recommend to the Governor General that the DPP get an extension. That's what had happened in 2020 when she got the 3-year extension. Again, because the Constitution doesn't allow for more than one extension, the Parliament, Mr. Hilton is arguing, passed this law to go around the Constitution, as I've said, and give her this extension. And he's arguing that that was an improper purpose. Mr. Hilton also told the court they should look at the entire context. So he said, for instance, look at the situation with the Auditor General, because remember, this act raised the retirement ages of both the DPP and the Auditor General. He said nobody has been making a fuss about the raising of the retirement age for the Auditor General. Why? She hadn't reached 60 yet, and therefore there was no concern about the effect and the purpose of the legislation in relation to her. Now, the judges had quite a few questions as to why it was that Ms. Llewelyn shouldn't benefit from this Constitutional Amendment Act. And I should say they've been asking these questions, since yesterday, since Mr. Powell addressed the court, asking them of Mr. Hilton as well. I don't get the sense that they're entirely satisfied with the answer. The answers have been along the lines of the fact that the act isn't retrospective, it's not backward looking, and that Ms. Llewelyn, I beg your pardon, couldn't benefit because her time had already run. She had reached retirement age, she had got an extension, she shouldn't benefit from the act. But we'll see when the ruling comes out. It could be they're just testing the lawyers and testing their arguments. Now, King's Counsel Ransford Bram, yes, now the King's Counsel Ransford Bram is also representing the government. So he responded now to Mr. Hilton's arguments. And essentially he was saying this improper purpose argument doesn't hold any water, dash it away. Obviously, my words are not his, but here is what he did say. So first, on the point of Parliament trying to go around the Constitution, Mr. Bram said no. He said Parliament has the authority to amend the Constitution, has the power to amend the Constitution, and they were acting within their power. So he is saying, no, there's no problem there. So one of the things Mr. Bram was arguing, he was saying that if you follow Mr. Hilton's arguments, then it would mean that even if one of the sections of the Constitution, that's what they call deeply entrenched, the most strongly protected provisions. He's saying if Parliament was trying to amend one of those provisions and doing it in the way the Constitution said, with a 2/3 vote in each House of Parliament with a referendum, he's saying if all of that happened, the court could come in and say, well, this wasn't passed for a proper purpose, so we're striking it down. And he said that would turn the law on its head. He said what Mr. Hilton is trying to do is introduce a whole nother tier into this process, a whole nother level into this process of constitutional amendment. And he said the court cannot go down that road. So one of the judges, Judge Leng, asked Mr. Bram if he was saying this improper purpose argument should be restricted. Mr. Bram said restricted? No, eliminated. He said it has no place in this particular case. It has no relevance. It has no applicability. Dash it away is what he was essentially saying. But he went a little bit further, and that's something lawyers will do if you're arguing a case, because you want to know that if the judges don't necessarily agree with you on one point, you have another string to your bow, you have another argument. So on the one hand, Mr. Bram is saying the court should not accept this argument that they can strike down this particular act because it was passed for an improper purpose. But he went further, as I was saying, and he was saying, so even suppose it's true that Parliament passed this law to benefit Ms. Llewelyn. Mr. Bram is saying there's nothing wrong with that. He's saying the Parliament passes laws all the time to benefit private entities or individuals, entities like churches, entities like railways. They'll pass private bills to benefit them. So he's saying there's actually nothing wrong with that, even if Ms. Llewelyn is the intended beneficiary. The judges were saying, can you really compare the DPP with a church, with a railway? Mr. Bram said the essential point of that argument is that there is nothing wrong with passing laws to benefit private individuals as long as the Constitution isn't breached. So just to make the point that Mr. Hilton's argument is that there is a breach because he's saying the improper purpose issue is a constitutional principle. So Mr. Hilton is arguing that there's a breach. So that's what we're going to have to wait to see where the courts come down and what they decide on that. Going to be really, really interesting reading. Going to be interesting to hear when this particular ruling is coming out. The hearing is nearly at an end. So we'll just be talking about wrapping up and
Okay, my gentle people, because we all listen to that and we absorb that. So Mr. Hilton is saying that there is a breach as it relates to what Parliament had done, going around the Constitution, right? Passing laws, right? To breach and establish law that's set within the Constitution just to have the DPP time extend. Now, Mr. Brett is simply saying that there is no breach. Now, let us deal with these people. This is where my argument is. I don't understand. Why is it so important, my people, for the government hell-bent in wanting to keep this DPP? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And not only me, just don't get it. Majority Jamaicans really and truly don't get it. Why is it important? Paula Llewelyn had reached the age of retirement as it relates to the established laws and had given an extension. And now Paula Llewelyn wanted to go beyond that extension, my people. So then my question is, why? It is so important for this government to keep Paula Llewelyn there. I just don't get it. I honestly just don't get it. We have, let me read what Janet said. I never thought I would see the justice system fighting the justice system all for corruption. Absolutely, Janet. And that is my point. Thank you for that contribution. Right? The argument that I am making is that you have persons there who are equally competent, so to speak, like Paula Llewelyn, and even more competent than Paula Llewelyn. So then it begs the question, what is it? What is it? Bless one. Corruption after corruption after corruption. Where is the people of Jamaica? Why are they sitting on their behind and doing nothing about this corruption? Blessed one, thank you and bless up yourself for this contribution. Blessed one, this is what I'm saying. I just don't get it. I mean, every rational person in Jamaica, right, who have to witness this, want to find out why is it so important to the government to keep this DPP, because we suspect that this DPP wanted to protect the status quo of this corrupted government. It just cannot be anything else. For me, it cannot be anything else. And the reason why this hits home for me is that, remember, my people, the person who Paula Llewelyn took over office from, right, had acknowledged, right, that he had reached retirement age and bowed out gracefully and allowed Paula Llewelyn in. And so then I don't understand why Paula Llewelyn, right, is not recognizing the situation of when she took over the baton right, from the previous DPP or from her predecessor. Her predecessor, right, did not try to hold on and try to put up blockage to avoid her from getting in, right? Her predecessor never seek any extension. Her predecessor gracefully stepped aside and said, okay, I reached the age of retirement and per law, that entrenching the Constitution, I will step aside. Let us be reasonable, people. Let us be reasonable. But here today, what could be the reason or reasons for Paula Llewelyn to be holding on? Is Paula Llewelyn wants to protect something? I don't know. But let us go down, right, in our program, and the next thing that we are going to come up with, right, we are going to might be presume that this is the reason why Paula Llewelyn is holding on. Derek Gordon said, they, the government, must tell us what it is. Exactly, Derek. But you know what? Let us go to our next clip, right, and get a little bit deeper under the surface. Might be to understand why the reason Paula Llewelyn is holding on, and the parliament, right, particularly where Andrew Holness is concerned, doesn't want Paula Llewelyn to demit office for whatever purpose and intentions they are, right? But let us read the next document and dig a little bit deeper under the surface, right? Without any further delay, let us bring up this. Okay. All right. Let us deal with this document, my people, right? Thursday, because this comes out today. This news is fresh. Holness urge to reveal statutory declarations to fight fake news. This is the thing with Andrew Holness, right? Speaking about Holness urge to reveal statutory declaration. The time Andrew Holness is taken to want to do all of that, he just need, right, to have his statutory declaration verified, right? You don't need to go to media, right? Have them bring the requisite document or outstanding document to explain the variances that you have, sir, which I know you can't, right? And the long playing out and drawing out, right, doesn't make sense because the statutory declaration situation is not going to move from you anytime soon. And I know for sure that, guess what? It doesn't make sense to try to keep Paula Llewelyn there, right? It doesn't make sense. Now let us read on, people. Holness urge to reveal statutory declarations to fight fake news, as according to him. Principal Director of the National Integrity Action, Danielle Archer, is suggesting that Prime Minister Andrew Holness make public its 2021 and 22 statutory declarations to combat misinformation, disinformation, fake news, or alternative facts that may be circulating concerning why it has not been certified by the Integrity Commission. Let us read on, people. The IC, Jamaica Anti-Corruption Watchdog, says it was not able to certify the Prime Minister's statutory declaration for at least 2 years. Section 56, subsection 1 of the Integrity Commission Act imposes a gag on the commissioner and the commission and bars it from disclosing information on statutory declarations, government contracts, and license. Any such information can only be made public when a report is tabled in Parliament. Section 53 also imposes a restriction on disclosure of Information. The IC has consistently called for the gag order to be repealed or revised, arguing that international best practices in anti-corruption, as well as good governance, accountability, and transparency in public affairs, demand that restrictions upon the sharing of public information, information should be revisited. Now, let me tell you something. I see. Andrew, let's let government not know anything about good governance, accountability, and transparency of which you speak right now. Right? They are the total opposite of that. And this is why they are behaving in this regard. And with the submission of the IC's 6th annual report to Parliament on Wednesday, Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice Michael Jackson said she hopes the Commission's annual report touches on the matter of illicit enrichment of the 6 parliamentarians and other public officials, so the public could have a sense of the status of the investigation given the high public interest in matter. So let us look forward to hear what is going to happen Wednesday. You hear a kind of passing the buck where the Prime Minister is responding to journalists in very abstract terms, but you will hear nothing from the Integrity Commission. She said, exactly. Last November, the Prime Minister indicated that he was in the process of responding to a second set of questions from the IC concerning his statutory declarations. During a post-cabinet press briefing, Holness said, they have written to me asking various questions. I have provided answers and they have written to me again. And I am in the process of providing those answers. Now, Andrew Holness, when I listened some time ago, say, him don't know anything about illicit 6. And
him ask, and
the
everybody said no, none of them was contacted.
And him said, he asked persons, and they had say that no one was contacted. Then I want him to say, I say, no. See, during a post-cabinet press briefing, Holness said, they have written to me asking various questions. I have provided answers and they have written to me again. And I am in the process of providing those answers. However, the Prime Minister has not provided an update on his interactions with the anti-corruption body. People who haven't understand this. Speaking with the Gleaner yesterday, Archer responded to concerns that lawmakers being probed for illicit enrichment could be on the Joint Select Committee reviewing the Integrity Commission Act and the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee. And that me talk about. I'm glad I want to pick it up. I'm glad all you people pick it up, because I am saying that if the Integrity Commission investigation, right, and the subject of their investigation might be, right, such a person that sits on the oversight committee, how that go, right? So I'm glad that you are touching it. She said that given the propensity of parliamentarians to protect themselves rather than the institution of parliament, there is a grave concern. Archer said her concerns were heightened since it is now apparent that parliamentarians seem to refuse to support and implement impeachment legislation. These are the things that we are talking about. She argued, no, but we could go up here saying, Archer said her concern were heightened since it is now apparent that parliamentarians seem to refuse to support and implement impeachment legislation. You remember Holness in the first 100 days that he will make sure that he recommend for impeachment a second layer of protection. And now Andrew Holness is fighting against that. People want to follow me, you know. Want to follow and understand. She argued that both the code of conduct and impeachment legislation have been acknowledged as important in ensuring that only persons of the highest integrity serve in parliament. So well, obviously, none of these people should be in parliament. Amen. Right? Because these are not persons of the highest integrity. No, right? And it is only persons of the highest integrity should serve in parliament. So then parliament is just going contrary. In the absence of both, And in the face of the revelation of the probe of 6 lawmakers for possible illicit enrichment, Archer noted that there would be concern as to whether lawmakers would make policy decisions in the interest of the people of Jamaica or the interest of themselves, their colleagues, and our associates. It's more like they are going to make policies in the interest of themselves, their colleagues, and their associates to protect themselves. That is exactly what they are doing right now. Archer argued that a morally tenable position for any parliamentarian who wants to be seen as respecting the rule of law in Jamaica would be to disclose that they are being questioned by the IC about their declarations. So true. If they know that they are being investigated and have not told the people they serve, when the smoke clears, we can conclude that these members of parliament lack integrity and do not belong in parliament, she declared. Right? I agreed with that 100%. However, Jackson has placed on the table a different position as it relates to lawmakers who might be members of the 2 committees that review matters relating to the IC. She said the JFJ was not calling for the 6 parliamentarians being probed for illicit enrichment to be named. However, she said if lawmakers being investigated for illicit enrichment currently sit on the Integrity Oversight Committee and the Joint Select Committee reviewing the IC law, both committees should be disbanded and other members named to avoid unintentional disclosure. It seems like these people are listening to us, because this is something one that's a long time. How can you, right, sits on the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee where you could be the subject of the Integrity Commission investigation? How is that ever possible? How is that ever possible?
Sitting on
right?
Overseeing
Andrew Holness, and I always talk about this. Andrew Holness, right, is actually the subject of an investigation. And if Andrew Holness is the subject of an investigation, then Juliet Holness automatically, you understand, would be a part of that. And so then here is Juliet Holness being the Speaker of the House. And not only that, Juliet Holness being the Speaker of the House, Juliet Holness also sits on the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee. Does that make sense, my people? That cannot, that under no rational basis, right? You can have something like that. Under no circumstances, right? And yet Jamaican people sit down and have this going on right in front of their faces. And therefore, if persons were being investigated because they would be aware of the status, without unintentionally naming themselves, they would be able to step aside. Jackson also echoed JFJ's call for the IC to be entrenched in the Constitution to guard against attempts by anyone who is being investigated by the anti-corruption body who may take steps to undermine the commission, as what they are doing now, as what Andrew Holness, right, and the so-called illicit persons, they are doing that right now as we speak, because we have seen where Warmington, and he never hid, right, was making more steps, want to dismantle the Integrity Commission. Warmington, who sits on the Integrity Commission Oversight, did not hide his intention. He wanted to dismantle the Integrity Commission, right? For what reason? Because they are doing their job. You can see that these men are corrupted to the core. She said the investigation of illicit enrichment was a very serious matter. It more than very serious. Jackson indicated that when such a probe is triggered, it means that there was a mismatch between the income and assets of the persons being probed. Of course. Because, I mean, come on. If your income is X and your assets is more than X. Simple means your income, right, cannot give you the assets that you hold, right? And let us do this in layman term only, right? If well, I am your husband, and said my salary is, 100,000 for the year, right? And there is no other means of me getting income, and yet for that year, I am buying cars that value past my salary, and also having building house past my salary. Wouldn't you concern in terms of where I get that money?
Of course, it's a big concern.
It's a big concern.
There's a big discrepancy there.
That would be a big discrepancy. Because if for the year, just for argument's sake, I am getting 100,000 for the year, and yet I am purchasing cars, you understand, for more than that 100,000, right? And in the meantime, I am also building mansion that value, right, much 10 times more than my income, right? This is the situation, people, that we're talking about here pertaining to Andrew Holness. On Wednesday, the IC reported that it is submitted its 2023 to 24 annual report to Parliament for tabling. Right? When you hear that, people? The IC said it anticipates that its annual report will be tabled in Parliament as soon as possible. Bangarang this, It said once the report is tabled, the IC will publish it on its website. And let me tell you something, IC. As soon as you publish it, me I grab it off of your website. You know some there. So as soon as you publish it, remember, every morning I check on the website. So as soon as you publish it, Mystic Sensation, I grab it because I want to share it with my people. Bangarang there. Take that away on it. So, gentle people, you hear that? So next week, between next week Friday, you have to hear from me, because as what the IC said, that, right, they send a report to Parliament and ought to be tabled as soon as possible. So my people, between now as we speak and Friday, when we return Friday, we're supposed to see all of the bangarangs playing out, because me go and make sure say I have that. You understand? To pass on the information to UNO. Like said, the Jamaican government should pay careful attention to what is happening in Kenya. Hold on the Lachlan, because we're going to touch that. The young have strong issues with corruption. It does not make sense to them, Lachlan. And it is plain and simple. Corruption shouldn't any at all make any sense in any modern society. Because what corruption does, right, it robs its people from opportunity. Well-needed opportunity and benefits. And it created inflation for the people. And that is one of the reasons why we are fighting so hard, right? Because we're simply telling Andrew Holness that we have nothing personal against Andrew Holness. We are talking about checks and balance, right? We want to ensure that our tax dollars are working for us and our tax dollars are being spent the way how it's supposed to be spent. That's just simply that we are asking, So there is nothing wrong with that. But then people can't get into them feelings as it relates Janet Jones throwing the justice system in confusion. Exactly, Janet. Right? And create mayhem and doing all of these things, pushing back on the Constitution, right? Going around the Constitution just to keep the DPP. For what? To cover up what? Because what that implies, that something is going on, that people are really thinking about rational people as it relates to what Andrew Holness said. Rational people are thinking about, say, no, man, something just don't right. It just don't right. And so then, this is what, you understand? We have to be here now holding the government accountable, right? Now, let me tell you something. And let me warn Andrew Holness. Mr. Holness loves to grab the mic. Good leaders learn not to speak too much and avoid complaining. Exactly, Mr. Latland. Now, let me show my ardent listeners, right, and people in TV land, right, all Jamaicans who are listening and tuning to Mystic Sensation. Now, I want to show, right, Andrew Holness and his minions. Not because you are not seeing the United States engaging as we speak. But let me say this. They have a saying or a phrase to say time is longer than rope. The next clip that I'm going to play, this is what I am saying when I say time is longer than rope. Sonia Ellis, somebody suggested that the time it takes to focus on social media, he could use that same time to work on his statutory declaration and get it certified. Sonia, I am so in agreement with you, but Sonia, sorry to break your bubbles. No matter how you work on it, that's something that can't get certified. You understand? No matter how you work on it. 3 years gone, and whatever I'm a wait upon, you understand, just not coming his way, right? So obviously, right, the thing that just can't get certified and will not be able to certify. So when he's running out in media that he's going to shame social media bloggers because he's going to speaking futuristically. At this point, right, that should be in the past tense. You should have done it already.
Get it done.
You should have done it already. That should have been in the past tense. Right? Now Mark Golden can speak about the past tense because Mark Golden, right, had submitted his statutory declaration, and his statutory declaration has been certified. Past tense for you, Mr. Andrew Holness. Why can't you speak in the past tense? You're speaking in the future tense, just like your 100 days promise. No, we don't want to hear that from you. We want the thing certified. Blessed one. What a shame on the government of Jamaica. Can these people who are running behind this government are too blind to see what they are doing to the people of Jamaica? Let me tell you something, blessed one. Right? You have some of them, you know. They know very well that Andrew Holness, you understand, as it relates to the rivers of corruption that surround him. Right? They know very well how the corruption thing go. But they themselves are corrupted too. And so then corruption is going to support corruption. So when you see all of these people, right, sticking around and jumping around Andrew Holness, it's as if, remember, it is not like they don't know. They know, but they love the corruption. So there's nothing that I can say on social media that will bend those people, you know. Because them people love the art of corruption. They are benefiting from the corruption. So you have to understand that corruption pays for them. Just like how some people involved in scamming, they know that what they are doing is wrong, but they are benefiting from scamming. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until they get caught and be prosecuted. So this is the very same way that we are seeing it playing out, right? Now, let us read something and just land. Anyone has the right to challenge the Prime Minister on the source of funds to build his house. He is a public figure. And let me say this. Because Andrew Holness is so arrogant, right? Remember, that Andrew Holness said that it is in the right of everyone to challenge the government if he or she sees that the government is not performing in their interest. Andrew Holness said this in 2015. So while we are here, and that's what you said, right? If we believe that the Prime Minister, right, whom our assets may attain his assets via illicit means, it is the right of us, right, to probe. And so then when we are probing now, what the Prime Minister is doing, brought forward from 2015 in terms of what he had said, the Prime Minister is now wanting to say, right, that he wants to muzzle bloggers. Because basically that's what the Prime Minister wants to do. If the Prime Minister has the opportunity in terms of controlling social media would be muzzled. Not too worry about that. Like how he has muzzled many institutions in Jamaica. Most of the mainstream media, they're not going to hold a conversation as it relates to the Prime Minister's statutory declaration and ask the Prime Minister questions about his statutory declaration. No, his social media is going to do that. So the Prime Minister now finds social media as a threat. And while he wants to challenge bloggers who oppose him on social media, he is now supporting and influence bloggers who join him in his mayhem of corruption. Those bloggers, right, are good bloggers, even in the dark, even as evident that those bloggers lies upon lies, right? Those are the bloggers he's okay with, right? And yet, two-faced, talking about misinformation and disinformation. And when his bloggers doing the misinformation, the disinformation, he acts as if he doesn't see them. But we now are pressuring him, right? Having, as it relates to checks and balance, he doesn't like that. But Andrew Holness, would you expect that we, the taxpayers, should stand by and watch you and your minions as it relates to the allegations, right? That could possibly, that you're pilfering from our treasury, right? Causing inflation to us, and we are not to say anything. Are you serious? Are you serious? No. So we are going to take a stand, and we are taking a stand. Now let us look at this document just to prep Andrew Holness the possibility, right, of what is in the pipeline to come. Without any delay, let us lift up this document, right, and show Andrew Holness and his minion, right, what is in the pipeline, because what I'm going to show, right, yes, is in the pipeline somewhere. And I'm just telling him, to prepare. So all of him wanting to have the DPP, right, remain in office. Let me tell you something. Bangarang soon happen, Mr. Andrew Holness. It's just a matter of time. I always tell you that, Right? New York, United States. A court in New York on Wednesday sentenced, Andrew Holness, do you hear this? Sentenced former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez to 45 years in prison after he was convicted of trafficking hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States. Anti-Hernandez protesters gathered outside the Manhattan courthouse ahead of sentencing, brandishing placards decrying the former head of state crimes, with one declaring narco government makes the people emigrate. The role of Mr. Hernandez was to use his political power as President of Congress and President of Honduras to limit the risk of drugs traffickers in exchange of money. We have seen several drugs baron, right, even at the Ian Fleming Airport, where umpteen of drugs, you understand, was found. Nobody being arrested. Patrick Bailey, you need to talk to us about this, you know. And I presume that United States is taking note of all these situations. The amount of drugs, drug busts, and nobody being arrested. And those drugs that have been seized, let me ask the question, where are they now? Because we are not sure that these drugs are in storages. Are these drugs being destroyed, right, in the public view for us to give evidence to say, okay, these drugs have been destroyed? It could be pretty well that these drugs, as a result of it being busted, and to the fact that the public being alerted that you go under the shenanigans of acting as if you are seizing the drugs, and then later that drugs end up back in those players' hands. So let me talk that, you know. Let me speak that. But remember now, you see what happened to this Honduran president, Mr. Juan Orlando Hernandez? 45 years in prison. So we know that the United States is taking stock of these things. So you let me read on. For all of those possible members of parliament who aided and abetting drugsmen and all those members of the PSOJ, let me talk about the things then, who aided and abetting in drugs operation, let me say, let me warn you, United States is taking stock. He said Hernandez provided police and military support, you don't hear that, and helped to send 400 tons of drugs worth $10 billion at market prices to the United States. The sentence, which also included an $8 million fine, was less than the life imprisonment that prosecutors had sought. Although Hernandez's age 55 means he may die behind bars. Member of Parliament, me I want to know, you know. You know, hear me, I want to know. That's why I bring the document here, you know. Who have eyes to see, let them see. And who has ears to hear. Honey, let them do what? Hear. Let them hear. He's going to pursue every single possible legal remedy that he can pursue. Hernandez lawyer Renato Stabile told reporters outside the court, whether you want to go pursue whatever legal means you want to go pursue, the fact of the matter, sentence handed down already. Who no like that can bite it. Hernandez, who U.S. federal prosecutor said turned its Central American country into a narco state, Andrew Holness. Members of Parliament, you know I hear this? You know hear what United States said? For all those who believe they cannot be touched by the United States because Jamaica is so-called sovereign. Let me read that over and I couldn't hear it now. Who often believes the United States and Jamaica is sovereign and Jamaica cannot be touched? You make me read about that over and I couldn't understand what they go on to say now because no one believes they are untouchable. No one believes they don't control DPP and in extension no control judge and so then uno run the turf and uno ban under the clock. You understand? Uno run things don't run uno. Let me read it back over. Hernandez, who U.S. federal prosecutor said turned its Central American country into a narco state during his presidency from 2014 to 2022, has previously indicated through his legal team he would appeal his conviction. Whether you want to go appeal for your business. He was convicted in March of having facilitated the smuggling of hundreds of tons of cocaine, mainly from Colombia and Venezuela, to the United States via Honduras since 2004. On a year from when, I told them, my people, I told them, long run, short catch, time, longer than rope. Hearts a get up. Now here when back foot a step. Starting long before his presidency, Hernandez used the drug money to enrich himself and finance his political campaign and commit electoral fraud. Let me read back this over. Let me read back this over. Hernandez used the drug money to enrich himself and finance his political campaign and commit electoral fraud in 2013 and 2017 presidential election, prosecutor said. Andrew, me just ask you if you hear what me I read. You know, tough one for the social media blogger, you know. All of a sudden, you depend on social media. You must know why you depend on social media. Instead, you look about the people's business. He had presented himself as a champion of the war on drugs. Yeah, hypocrite. Hypocrite. They always been hypocrite. And was initially seen by Washington as an ally in the fight. Yeah. Ally in the fight. Yeah, they go on like my ally in the fight and run at the back there. You understand? Him a push and assist the pushing. And yet gone and yet they pretend that he's an ally in the fight. In 2017, the United States was one of the first countries to recognize his re-election, while the opposition denounced fraud against a backdrop of violent protests that left some 30 people dead. You know, here we are going, people. He was extradited to the United States in 2022. And you want to say, hear that? Because I ask you if you hear that. Using a law he had himself held to pass as Congress president under pressure from Washington, accused of aiding drug smugglers in return for millions of dollars in bribe. If the fall of Hernandez, who is known in his country as J.O.H., Joe, was abrupt, no sooner had he handed over power to the new left-wing president, Xiomara Castro. The outgoing leader was shackled and paraded in front of journalists. You know, remember read about this. Because this is what happening in Jamaican people. Come here, Jamaican people. Come here, come listen to this. This is what we want to see. No sooner had he handed over power to the new left-wing president, Xiomara Castro, the outgoing leader, was shackled and paraded in front of journalists. Come Andrew, let's make case call the election. Make case call the election. Make case call the election and lose it. You understand? And then some little shackling can go on. We don't mind, you know. But we want to see this. Hernandez follows in the footsteps of other former Latin American heads of state convicted in the United States, including Panama's Manuel Noriega. Hey, come here, Andrew, let me give you some history here. Because you are like you're king of king, you know, call yourself bro God. You understand? Nobody else in the Caribbean don't call themselves bro God, you know. But you take up the bro God mentality. So what I mean? No one can touch you. You're untouchable. But let me give you a little history right here, Sabas. Let me give you a little history where you need to hear. So come listen to this, Andrew. Hernandez follows in the footsteps of other former Latin American heads of state convicted in the United States, including Panama's Manuel Noriega in 1992 and Guatemala Alfonso Portillo in 2014. You hear that, Andrew? The short athletic leader was known for his military haircut, having served as an officer before training as a lawyer, completing a master's degree in New York 1995. His legal woes began in earnest in 2018 when his brother Juan Antonio Hernandez was arrested in Miami and sentenced in March 2021 to life imprisonment for large scale of drug trafficking. You hear that? After his arrest in Honduras in February 2022, Hernandez said he was a victim of revenge by the drug lords, many of whom testified against him in New York that a fear business. If you mix up in your passa, take that away. Let me talk to my people then. Let me spend a little 2 minutes with my people then before me move on. Now, my people, my wonderful people, my ardent listeners who always listen to me, my people, yeah, we see a lot of corruption taking place in Jamaica, a lot of drugs, right? Just flowing at the island, right? Plain land, right? And, you know, people took off, no arrest made, you don't know what was in the plane, then plane burn out and rare, as if to say destroying evidence. We have seen the amount of drugs being found and rare, blah, 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 blah. But people, United States is taking stocks. Yes, United States is taking stocks. So all who believe that them are right and them can manipulate Jamaica criminal justice system because they have the bro God qualities. And they think that, you know, a third world country, yeah, man, we can just run this, we can manipulate this. You understand me? I say, we run things. Things don't run we. Just a matter of time. Now let us move on. Let us move on. Now, people, this next document that I am coming up with. Next week, people, let me say this to all my ardent listeners. Next week, every ear is upon the ground, you know. We're the tabling of the report as it relates to the IC annual report. People are in anticipation, like myself, who is going to wait to see what Holness, how Holness is going to treat it. So I'm going to display what Holness has stated. Bangarang, they go on next week, you know. Bangarang, now watch out for this, you know. The city is to keep the DPP. Aye, boy, may I tell you something, sir. Regardless of all the shenanigans, I am saying that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So let us find this other document. Speaker signal, imminent tabling of IC report. Let us find this other document and tell the people what I want. Because we want to update our people as it relates to what is going on, my people. So let us get into this. Right? As we talk about Bangarang is going to happen here. People want to watch this now. Speaker signal imminent tabling of IC report despite previous ruling. This published Friday, June 28th. Not today? Yeah. 28th at 12:13 a.m. Fresh news, this paper, fresh. Holness, Speaker of the House of Representatives, in an apparent reversal of her November 2023 ruling, because you better than everybody else. Our Speaker Holness has signaled that the Integrity Commission IC 2023 to 24 annual report will be tabled next Tuesday, people. So people, Tuesday, we are looking for it. Want all to look out for it in accordance with established procedures and protocol. Yes, man. Yes, Holness. You need to obey established procedures and protocols and nobody go around it. You nobody go around it like what you had intended to do and attempted to do. You better try stay in line. It look like she get some pressure, people. It look like she come under some pressure. Some pressure did it. I believe that some pressure is there. A Thursday media release from Parliament on Thursday said the House of Parliament had received copies of the report. Okay. On November 7, 2023, Holness ruled that annual and special reports for the people who look how she out of order. Look how she out of order and want to change, establish norms and policy. Look what she did November 7, 2023. Remember reading it out for now. On November 7, 2023, Holness ruled that annual and special reports from the anti-corruption body would go to its oversight committee for deliberation before being tabled. Only to say she out of order. People, want to talk to me now. Want to see how she out of order to know that she is the subject of an investigation, or possibly the subject of an investigation. And she, who is the House Speaker and also sits on the Oversight Committee, she want the report to go to her. People, see that, I couldn't understand. On November 7, 2023, Holness ruled that annual and special reports from the anti-corruption body would go to its Oversight Committee for deliberation before table. That's what I tell you, say she under pressure, people. She under pressure, and don't joke this. Commenting on annual report submitted under Section 36, subsection 2 of the Integrity Commission Act. The Speaker said, once the report is submitted to Parliament, it will be sent to the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee for consideration and report. On outer than brighty, On outer than bright. When it's sent to Parliament, right, and Parliament table it, you understand the Integrity Commission should be able to talk and speak on it. And the relative charge is supposed to be laid. You're not supposed to go on an oversight committee on the outer than bright. And that's what we want to do. That's why I know you're under pressure now. Once the committee has completed its deliberation, both the reports of the committee and the relevant report from the Integrity Commission will be tabled thereafter, out of order and bright. Out of order and bright. One going to Parliament after but I want to know if Jamaican people are telling them to go doing the wrongdoing. And Jamaican people are telling them to go involved in the wrongdoing. We don't want to come and go malign the Constitution and go on all sort of curve and turns. We don't want to go on all sort of turns and curves like when we take the Parliament for Fern Gully. We don't want to behave like Parliament on Fern Gully. Want to take turns and curves and turns. That's what I said. Turn and curves. We don't want to take, like we don't want to take Parliament and turn Parliament in a Fern Gully. We don't know how hard and right. We hope that this will apply to our reports from the IC she added out of order. Also argued that the return to table in IC annual reports in line with long-standing Parliament practice was a response to a justifiable public outcry. What do you mean? There was no most outcry for that. You understand? We can't have persons who are the subject of an investigation. They look over their own investigation. In people, let me just explain it to the lay people who don't understand. People, just imagine now, me now, go thief something. You understand? And police are investigate me. And me sit on a committee which part the police investigation have to come through me. You understand? For me, if you rule upon it. He understood what than is. Infamous ruling of the House Speaker. She commended citizens of goodwill and members of civil society organizations who spoke out against the controversial ruling by the Speaker and insisted that the long-standing practice of tabling IC reports promptly be restored. Of course. The restoration of this practice encourages our citizens to speak out when there is a perceived wrong in the conduct of the authorities. Archer noted, and remember, Andrew Holness asked us to speak out when there is something wrong. So now we are speaking out. And read ears of me, only yielded to cause.
Okay, in March.
Let me just rest with you.
In March, Speaker Holness yielded to unrelenting calls from members of civil society and the parliamentary opposition and tabled 2 reports from the Auditor General that Parliament held for more than 2 months. Prior to their tabling, the Speaker had returned the Auditor General's department reports, following which the Auditor General sent them back to Parliament.
Do you know about my report? Because the report are too sweet. You know why you read no more. the reporter too sweet. In April, the Speaker laid on the table of the House the Attorney General opinion on tabling of the reports from the Integrity Commission and Auditor General Department following months of wrangling. You see what she Ghana Parliament go do? You see what she Ghana Parliament go do? Ghana Parliament gonna create bangarang after she involved in her bangarang. I want clear out of her bangarang. But we are going to hold her in her bangarang and make sure that she get consequence for her bangarang. All right. Archer argued that it was extremely disappointing to realize that the opinion of the Attorney General contradicting the erroneous decree of the House Speaker was available to her over a prolonged period, during which time a long-standing public servant was publicly reprimanded for allegedly not complying with a flawed directive. What do you mean? A retraction of the public reprimand is warranted on the facts and actions now in the public domain, Archer said. Former clerk to the House, Valerie Curtis, was accused of gross dereliction of duty. I don't know why I'm going there. They lie on the decent people them and turn the decent people them in a all sort of cheap bangarang. You understand? But you know, I've got turn up on wall on the bangarang, you know. However, Curtis dismissed the claim, calling for a public apology for the Speaker. To date, the Speaker has not tendered a public apology to Curtis. No, they don't know no better. They don't know no better. You understand me? I say, let me tell you something. They don't know no better. You know, say, Professor Rex Snatterford said, a butu in Benz is still a butu.
You take a butu and put him in a Benz, but it's still a butu.
And that's what he said. You take a butu, put into a Benz, that butu is still a butu. So, uno here. So, uno now go hear no apology from the butu. Let me say that plain and clear. Okay, done. The piece of meat that went sweetie. Oh, you done so quick. All right. Let me talk to the people. Now, my people. Now, honestly, the attempt of what the Speaker wanted to do. But of course, the Jamaican people hold them to account and said, no, please allow the usual standard operating procedures to take course. No one will tell you and your minions to involve in what you involve in. And so then you want to take all the realms to break down the barriers of justice. Right? Because you involve in your shenanigans and your bangarang. No. Please allow it to stay there. And so then, Tuesday mystic sensation. As me wake up Tuesday morning, me up on my phone and searching. You understand me? I say? Because me want the evidence to come and show my people. Now, let me tell you something. Whenever my people come around here, my people not come here on mystic sensation to waste time. People want to decide for the truth and want to make informed decisions. So the onus is on my shoulder and my wife's shoulder to make sure that when we are doing the research, that research laid 100% on facts. And that's why I am happy to say that anyone who wants to speak out there on social media to say that mystic sensation is lying, tell them to come on the station and prove that I am lying. Me no waste people time, because I value all persons, right, who are listening to us, that they are not wasting their precious time. And we thank all of you to support Mystic Sensation. Now let us move in something interesting, because people, as me tell you now, pressure, bus pipe, and Marky G, right, is not easing up the pressure. So let us look at the next document, because pressure is on, right? Without any delay on it, speaker signal. Okay, Mark Golden finish this speech outside.
Okay.
So let me tell you something now, and I'm going back to something, right, as it relates to what transpired in Parliament, as it relates to there's a chronological sequence. We know that we played the clip here already, but to the fact that we are now in this, right, fresh news meat coming out, you understand, and what Mark Golden, right, is pointing out to us, right, during his Parliament sitting, right, and where he was disrespected in Parliament because they knew very well that Mark Golden was going to come out and speak on the issues, right? What Mark Golden just wants is the issue of accountability. Look how Mark Golden deals with transparency. When Mark Golden venturing into the politics, what Mark Golden done? Mark Golden decided as a business person, and he's going to leave the private affairs, get into public affairs, all of his business. He took it and he placed it in a blind trust in order to separate private business and public business. Them are GLP people are not in a that. Them not in a that. Government contract them, sweep it up, them create all sort of shit companies. You understand? Put people there to give them contract. You understand? And political kickback. Yeah, shenanigans and the set of nastiness, plain nastiness that is taking place. But look at how Mark Golden is this, you know, exposing it. And trust me, Mark Golden, let me tell you something. People, for all those who believe that Mark Golden, right, is not firm, uno lick uno head side. Me de tell uno say, uno lick uno head side. Because people are going to be prosecuted. Uno remember, I am here speaking this every day. I am here from week to week speaking this, that people are going to be prosecuted, and I know to come that people will say, you know, some mystic sensation always talk about this and see it on our people. No, so let us push out that this document without any delay. The people that want to hear the information, they don't want to hear me talk too much. All right. Okay. Run it.
I don't have a microphone, but I'd like to finish my speech. I'm very near the end. So I hope somebody will film this, and I hope that you'll be able to hear what I say. Yes. Your media?
Yes, from the Gleaner.
He's from the Gleaner.
Oh, Gleaner. All right.
Can you hear me though?
Yes, I
can. The point I was making when the Prime Minister chose to walk out and was left the Parliament without a quorum. I think it's the first time this has ever happened in independent Jamaica. That in a budget speech, the opposition has been denied the opportunity to finish their presentation. And here I am assembled on Duke Street. I was near the end anyway, but there were some important points that needed to be made. And I'm going to continue. The point I made when they walked out was this. When the former speaker was forced to resign as a result of an Integrity Commission investigation, the move to replace her with the wife of the Prime Minister, so that the head of Parliament is now the spouse of the head of government, does not sit well with the tradition that the speaker must act independently of the government of the day. That is a fundamental principle of the Westminster system of democracy. And it is protected in a number of ways. For example, in the United Kingdom, nobody runs against a speaker in an election. They make sure the speaker is elected because that person is supposed to be independent. So that, I think, that move to do what happened in our case here was inconsistent with that level of independence that's required. The failure to disclose the identity of the so-called illicit 6 MPs who are under investigation by the Integrity Commission for illicit enrichment remains a festering sore, only made worse by the Prime Minister's gag order on his own cabinet ministers from speaking publicly on matters to do with the Integrity Commission. The Prime Minister's statutory declarations of assets and liabilities and income have not been certified and published by the Integrity Commission for successive years. It is untenable for the head of government of Jamaica not to be in good standing with the country's Integrity Commission for a prolonged period. All I can say to him, and I would have said it to him if we were still in the house, all I can say, if I were in your position, I would take with myself and hand over to someone else who is not compromised.
Since we implemented Capado, we cut our deployments down by half.
Take it away. People, let me tell you something. Dark clouds hang over the Jamaica Labour Party. The Jamaica Labour Party is in what we call a conundrum. Simply means that they are in a serious bind. And let me say this. I bid you not that persons who are involved in all what they're involved in as it relates to corruption, don't you ever think that you are going to get away scotch-free. Regardless that you might believe that you are going to corrupt the justice system, we are telling you that the wheels of justice might be rolling slow. The fact of the matter, it's rolling in your direction. Trust me. And your 6 o'clock is coming. Let me warn. Now, let me play a clip where somebody is speaking as it relates to the credibility of the Prime Minister. The trust deficit that the Prime Minister created. Not only the Prime Minister, all the minions that surrounded the Prime Minister, the level of trust deficit that is there. There's no trust. And more than 3/4 of Jamaicans don't trust the Prime Minister. So then the Prime Minister, looking forward as it relates to campaigning, right, is just wasting its time. Andrew Holness, let me tell you something. Whatever strategy that you are doing and promising all of what you're going to promising, you're promising this and promise that. Remember, Andrew Holness, that you have promised before and you did not deliver. Why people should believe that you are going to deliver now. People know you, Andrew. You need to get, and this is it, you know. This goes again to prove Andrew Holness is a narcissist. Because somewhere in his brain, they tell him, say, the people them still love him. You understand what I'm saying? And he believes that he has done nothing wrong. Even when he knows that he committed the ultimate sin. This is the one narcissists behaving on people. Right? They never yet take blame for anything that they have done. And so then we know that Andrew Holness is a full-blown narcissist. Now, without any delay, let us get into this clip. Overlay 7. And we are going to hear what being communicated here.
Here now is somebody that we can trust. I want you to understand something. The man that is here now is the cat order specialist. And cat order specialist. When they had Petrocham, there was one lady who used to earn $2.5 million in a private sector. Yolanda should she leave and go in the public sector to work for government. And our pay moved from 2.5 million to 30. You know, the private sector now going to pay you more than the public sector. But PRP go 5 times when she left to work for government. When this scandal go on, they sign and give her a little agreement and then sign a non-disclosure agreement. Then get it so nobody can talk about it. And then run. Come back again. They give a company and Dexin $600 million to build some houses down the center. And they're supposed to sell the houses then to people. It's a partnership between them and the government. They want them billions and sell it for them and sell it for. And then they give back the government the $600 million. It's after 5 years. I want them loan them in take right now. So they want them the $600 million for 5 years and they will pay up the 600. And then they sign something. No disclosure again. Can't talk about that. Then they come again. And the Integrity Commission, and the DPP says something. The Integrity Commission in their annual report, and the next one that come out by next week, that come out by Friday. It means that they have something with them salary can afford. The DPP 14 come out and say, I don't need. And that's 63 people I evaluated. The 14 PNP come out and say, I don't need. That leaves with 49 suspects. They are suspects, all 49 of them are suspects. A few of them wanted to come out and say, I'm them. And you know why Prime Minister kept down their kid? So they can't talk. Imagine, illicit enrichment a serious crime. Somebody is investigating for illicit enrichment and you know say you're not thief nothing. And you want to come out and say that you are the man so you can't talk. Imagine how wicked to feel one of people then. That people will come out and clear their names and the leave. And the Prime Minister put Canada and the province and they can't talk. We come back again. And then you hear the other speakers and talk about it. They rent a building $450 million. They renovate the building $1 billion. And the rent is about 30 million a month or something like that. So between the one next year, September, when they are occupying, they must spend an extra $300 million. Call it $2 billion they must spend. And when they ask the question, who owns the building? Canada again. This Prime Minister is a cat order specialist. And when I hear him come out and talk about him choose Jamaica. Listen, when you choose Jamaica, when you register the company at St. Lucia, every time you choose Jamaica, you have to get rid of that man.
Well, people, do you know the reason why I played that? Because, of course, the next document that I am going to touch is very important. Another investigation from Zara Burton. Now, last week, I played something, played a report from Zara Burton, right? And where Zara Burton specifically was speaking about Nigel Clark, right? Now, as it relates to non-profit companies that Nigel Clark set up. But it goes beyond Nigel Clark. And so then, this is another leg, another extension of that report. Now, highlighting other people. So, I mean, the level of corruption, right? As it relates to breaking down guidelines, rules, and established procedures. It has no boundaries, it has no limits when it comes to Andrew Holness. Like government. They disregard all policies, right? They challenge the Constitution. They do all of these things disregarding law and order. And so then what we are seeing as it relates to Andrew Holness-led government would have now clearly described as authoritarianism strictly. That if we allow this government and we don't apply the pressure on this government, if Andrew Holness gets a third term, Jamaica is going to go into a full court dictatorship. I am warning you people, warning you. Now let us get into this to show you this. Bring up this document, 18 degrees north. All right, let us get into this and show our people. All right, so yes, people, we are going to present that documentation for you. All right, so here it is, people. Right, as it relates to Zara Burton investigation, 18 degrees north. Our network of non-profits enriches fundraisers while spending almost nothing on its stated causes. The story was first published on June 18, 2024 by ProPublica, a non-profit news outlet in the United States that investigates abuses of power. Given 18 degrees north continued focus on non-profits linked to politicians that are mostly going unmonitored by the Jamaican government. I want to hear that people and listen. We could go down in the story, right? Profit linked to politicians that are mostly going unmonitored by the Jamaican government accountability apparatus. We are republishing this article under a Creative Commons license to highlight potential previously unknown risk of non-profit in general and to remind the public about why non-profit should be monitored. By republishing this article, 18 degrees north is not implying that similar activity is happening within these local foundations, but because there is so little information available from the non-profit we have focused on. The article does lay the foundation for additional questions to be asked about how many money raised, especially by those connected to politicians, is being spent. Now, in September 2020, the Federal Trade Commission joined regulators in 4 states to sue 4 men behind a notorious telemarketing company called Outreach Calling. The FTC alleged that the company, which is described as a sprawling fundraising operation, had raised millions on the promise of helping the needy, cancer patients, veterans, firefighters, but instead used the money to line its pockets. People want to understand all of these situations being unfolding as it relates to Andrew Holness-led government. The case was meant to put fundraisers on notice. The FTC would not only go after charities that improperly spent donor dollars, but it would aggressively pursue their fundraisers who participate in the deception, a news release said. The executives and cooperative entities behind the operation were fined more than $58 million. They were also banned from all charitable fundraising for life. But regulators kept one door open in most of the settlements: the ability to continue fundraising for political purposes. For Thomas Birkenbush, who was a co-manager at Outreach, that provision would prove to be a windfall. I want to hear it, people. Before the deal with the FTC was even finalized, Birkenbush filed paperwork to establish a new company, Office Edge LLC. Since then, the Office Edge has been paid about $866,000 for fundraising from organizations that similar claim to be working on behalf of cancer patients, veterans, and firefighters. The difference, these groups are not charities. They are political non-profits that claim to use donation to influence elections and support broad political causes. The group that are hiring Birkenbesh are known as 527s after a section of the tax code. They include federal political action committees, organizations that raise money to elect or defeat candidates and are regulated by Federal Election Commission, but also a lesser-known group of non-profit. These 527 group limited their direct support to political candidates, removing them from the jurisdiction of the FEC or similar state agencies and leaving their regulation to the IRS. They do not have restriction on how much donors can contribute, but the donations are not tax deductible. Right? So let us take that document away and let me explain this as it relates to that. Now, some of our politicians in Jamaica are doing just that. Right? The one that Zara Burton had spoken on, right? The one that I featured last week was to show you how Nigel Clark, right, have several of these companies, right, where all sorts of money, I call it laundering through, right, and certain procedures and protocols being breached. We have showed that document. So what Zara Burton is giving a reflection of what is going on in the States is the extension of the same corruption that is taking place here. Right? So we have to make a note of that. All right. Now, we are going to get into more situation as what we said earlier, where we talk about outside forces are taking note of what is taking place in the Caribbean. There is no joke. When I say that, there is no joke. And as we said, that something in the pipeline is coming down. We have some information that we are not going to release just yet. Because knowing Mystic Sensation have to deal with verification. And when we say that things are coming down in the pipeline, it is no joke. Now, let us show something here. Now, let us find Interpol notice issues. Okay. Let me show them evidence that outside forces are taking note. When we say that outside forces are taking note, they are taking note. Now let us get into this. Interpol notice issued for former Bahamian legislator, published Thursday, June 27, 24, 11:55 a.m. Nassau, Bahamas, CMC and Interpol read notice has been issued for a former Bahamian legislator who is wanted on 2 charges of stealing by reason of service and 2 charges of proceeds of criminal conduct. People make it go down in a this. If convicted, the former Exuma legislator Elliot Lacard, KC, could face up to 34 years in prison. Remember we read one before, we get 45 years. We're going to show them this, you know. The notice published last month came after 2 people complained to police about Mr. Lacard in separate matters. According to the notice, the first complaint, Daniel Clay Smith Jr., reported to the Financial Crime Investigation Branch that he paid US $3.2 million to Lacard, 65 for legal work concerning Crown land. Crown land between May 2002 and November 2022. The funds were also to help him and his family apply for citizenship. However, the notice claimed that Smith requested his money back when nothing materialized by November 2022. Mr. Smith requested a wire transfer, and Elliot Lockhart sent a document that appeared to be transfer detail from CIBC First Caribbean International Bank to Cross Creek Group LLC, dated 22nd December 2022. The notice said, however, the document was fraudulent and the funds have not been received to date. Detectives said CIBC First Caribbean International Bank confirmed that 3.1 million was deposited to Mr. Lockhart account on March 6, 2023. So this money has come in. But the transaction was reversed moments later. It is suspected that the receipt generated from the transaction was given to Mr. Smith to deceive him into thinking that the funds were on the account to cover the wire transfer, the notice said. In the second complaint, Dr. Paul Fox reported that he retained legal services from Lockhart's law firm in May 2023 to buy several properties in Exuma and Paradise Island. Subsequently, over several months, he transferred $3 million to Lockhart's firm CIBC First Caribbean International Bank account. The law firm failed to provide any documentation of the properties and produced several other inconsistencies. As a result, Dr. Fox requested that the funds be returned on the 27th April 23. The notice said Lockhart allegedly sent a copy of an alleged fraudulent wire transfer as what he did previously. So you see the modus operandi of this criminal to Fox for $3 million. But the monies were never sent and Fox received no funds. Although demand letters were sent to Lockhart, they produced no results and Fox took legal action against Lockhart last year. In addition to his legal and political career, Lockhart is a former chairman of Nassau Flight Services, the gaming board of the Bahamas, and the police inspectorate. An Interpol Red Notice is a request to law enforcement worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest a person pending extradition, surrender, or similar legal action. Take that document away. Now, people, let me tell you something. If you think that external forces are not taking note, right? Because several things is happening in Jamaica, you know, as it relates to what we call the black market dealership. Now, I am going to open Jamaican eyes to something right now. Let me take a sip. All right. Jamaica, I am going to open your eyes to something right now. What is taking place in Jamaica as it relates to our Chinese counterparts? So I am going to deal with the Chinese now. And where this government is so corrupted, I am going to explain certain things and make people understand where I'm coming from. Build a foundation before I proceed. So let me talk to the people.
Blessings, Carlos. Jamaican Carlos, welcome. Happy Friday.
Bless up yourself, Carlos. So let me talk to the people. China, right, over many years had worked and developed what we call a financial weapon for themselves. I call it a weapon, and one of the reasons I call it a weapon, because China use it in a way, right, to manipulate certain economies around the globe. What Mystic Sensation is talking about. Now, we have the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund. We have the World Bank. And so the International Monetary Fund, when they lend monies to a particular economy, they lend that money and it comes with what we call austerity measures, right? So certain programs, that social programs that, you know, the government used to fund, will have to cut in order to pay back the loans. Now, China had created what we call the BRI. What is the BRI? The BRI is the Belt and Road Initiative, an economic advance tool, financial assets for China to lend money to other economy, right, who may pursue loan from China. Note what I'm going to say next, because this is evidently so. China loves when a country is corrupt. What Mystic Sensation is talking about? Yes. Whenever a country is corrupt or China find a corrupt leader, China benefits more. Because China, right, as it relates to the loan that they offer, doesn't really comes with certain austerity measures. So you have a lot of countries that prefer to borrow money from China to avoid the austerity measure. So they are not under restriction as to how they need to spend the money what they borrowed from IMF. China doesn't give them that restriction. China will lend them the money, right? And these countries will do what they please with that money, creating a gap for corruption, which make China strive. Why China is going to strive? For argument's sake, let us talk about our Jamaica country. Now, when we take loan from China, right, and as it relates to building the highway, and the government in certain loans, but corruption is the order of the day for that government, and so then the money that need to pay back on time, right, is not paying back on time. And particularly for the highway, if it is not making as much money to pay back the loan, China will say now, let me have that, or let me operate that for certain years in order for me to get back my loan, or for me to be paid back. So then, as it relates to our wharf, our free ports, our ports, now being handed over to China to operate, right? Now, not only our ports, there are other areas like prime land, crown lands. China might say, okay, all right, lease the source, right, for X amount of time, and so then China operate that. And so then that within itself will create what we call an encroachment to the Jamaican citizen, right, as China expand in our country, right? And so then that benefit China when the government is corrupt. Now look, listen on this. Not only that, when we give China our ports, what are the items that China is taking into our land through our ports? Right? Are our ports properly managed? Now, to the fact that China sort of indulge as it relates to corruption, what is going on as it relates to what is coming through the ports? People, let me play this clip, and I want you to listen this keenly for yourself. And I'm going to show you other clips of what China is doing in Jamaica. Now, without any delay, let us lift up this clip. And I want you to listen this clip to hear what China is doing, not only in Jamaica, right, but around the world. And so then for this government to take note, people, please pay attention to this clip.
Chinese money launderers have partnered with Mexican drug cartels to efficiently launder the proceeds of the fentanyl trafficking.
Law enforcement in this country has not got sufficient tools to tackle it.
They're really on the rise as the dominant money laundering networks.
Abbiamo certificato che venivano qui a consegnare emissari di famiglie criminali dai più disparati territori nazionali.
These are franchise models, highly sophisticated. They could be stood up quickly and move a lot of value in a lot of different directions simultaneously.
The scale and the scope of this is really quite extraordinary.
We started bringing all the elements of the government together because it was a national security issue. It was a matter of life and death.
In 2017 and 18, something significant happened. We didn't know why. We couldn't understand why. Suddenly, Chinese money brokers began to control the laundering of Mexican cartel proceeds. And they started to do it for 1% to 2%. Those were charges or broker fees that were unheard of. We believe that the Mexican cartels increased their bottom line, their net profits, by 3% to 5% by simply partnering with Chinese money launderers.
In the 1990s, as China liberalized economically, as Chinese business started moving around the world, a system of Chinese underground banking or money exchange system developed in places where Chinese businesses were expanding, catering to businesses often operating with legal commodities in legal economies, but needing to move money they would not be able to move through the Chinese banking system.
And what these underground banks do is they transfer money according to something that's called mirror transfer. A person, let's say, on the one end of the network will arrive with a sack full of money in cash, deposit it at the underground bank, and then through this mirror transfer, another person will pick up the same amount of money from the other branch of the same underground banking network. The crucial thing about this is that no money has actually been transferred. It's completely invisible to the authorities that might wish to crack down on it. This illicit money finances all kinds of things. It finances shopping sprees by Chinese consumers who want to buy luxury in Europe. It also finances, we have evidence, the international drugs trade, and is particularly germane when we think of the big crisis of fentanyl that's currently affecting the United States.
As we continue our coverage, the DEA reports fentanyl overdose. It is the leading cause of death among those under the age of 50. And they're warning communities that one pill can kill.
It's the deadliest drug threat our country has ever faced.
I cover law enforcement here in New York for the Financial Times, and in the course of meeting with a former DEA agent in a Manhattan skyscraper, halfway through our meeting, he said, "Forget what you're working on now. I have a far bigger story that's being ignored." The fentanyl crisis, that is probably the biggest killer of Americans under 50, is being fueled by Chinese money laundering, and law enforcement in this country has not got sufficient tools to tackle it. For decades, the drug cartels operating in the US had developed a very sophisticated system for money laundering. They would put the cash on trucks, they would drive them across the border, they would find ways of sending the money to people in the US who needed cash and would buy products with them, etc. But the DEA and enforcement agencies across America had a playbook for how to tackle this. All of that changed with the fentanyl crisis. When I first heard about this, a few people told me, you have to speak to this guy, Ray Donovan. He'd be one of the first to identify this problem. Suddenly, Chinese nationals were popping up everywhere in the surveillance of the fentanyl trade to an extent that they hadn't been before. And he and his team realized something was going on here.
My name is Raymond Donovan. I am the former Chief of Operations for the Drug Enforcement Administration. So I grew up in an Irish neighborhood up in the Bronx. But then we moved to a neighborhood where it was all Puerto Rican. I saw drugs decimate parts of my family in the 70s, in particular heroin. I became an expert not only in the cartel, but really being able to exploit comms or communications. In the mid-90s, cocaine was just falling from the sky. My first year, we seized here in New York City 7,000 kilos of cocaine. When you're intercepting tens of thousands of kilos, you're really causing a lot of harm to the cartel. We were focused in primarily on tractor trailers coming from the West Coast to the East Coast. In 2012, I was assigned to the Special Ops Division. SOD is basically the hub for the world as it relates to narcotics investigations and criminal networks. While at SOD, I developed a team. We collectively pursued Chapo Guzman. We never really focused in on Chinese organized crime. Our focus was on the Sinaloa cartel. Yeah, we're in Brooklyn, near to downtown Brooklyn. It's a warehouse area. It's an area that is known for receiving shipments of drugs coming in from Mexico or from other states across the United States. We started realizing that Chinese organized crime was not only involved with supplying all the precursor chemicals to Mexican cartels for production of illicit narcotics, they were also really taking over the international money laundering aspects of the entire drug trafficking as we know it across the United States.
Another fentanyl bust in the Bronx, just blocks away from the daycare where a 1-year-old boy died.
We would see an organization that we identified through our investigation that was a fentanyl distribution network, dropping off drug proceeds to a Chinese money launderer here in New York City. And then that launderer would then bring money through our investigation to an MSB or money service provider in Flushing, Queens. And from there, we would launch a different sort of investigation that became more about following the paper trail of how the money is leaving through these stores because they were fronts. Often you'll see a business that from the outside looking in, it looks like it's one business, but once you walk inside, there's multiple businesses within. And that's where you'll see that they'll have a money service provider set up to launder illicit drug proceeds on behalf of the criminal organizations.
We had a saying, all roads lead back to Flushing. The reason we said that is we identified command and control, leadership. All these things sort of centered back to Flushing, Queens. My name's Chris Irvin. I'm a managing director with Nardello & Co., which is a global investigations firm. Prior to Nardello, I spent 24 years.
All right. So what we're going to do, we are going to stop it there. I just want to build the awareness as it relates to China involvement in all these things, but China is doing even much more than that. China is involved in great loot of counterfeit goods and services in now Jamaica. Floating in these items, right, to even damage Jamaicans. What is critical about this is that our ports been handed over to China. And so then we are not monitoring properly what been coming through the ports and what China has now released on the streets of Jamaica. It's a whole lot. So then what China is doing, slowly and surely damaging the health of our people, sacrificing us for their wealth. I want people to pay attention to this. Why Mystic Sensation is saying this? These are not things that I am making up. Evidently, let me prove this. There are so many counterfeit goods that now link to China. Now, watch this. And this is one of the recent things, but there are so many other things.
From counterfeit bags, shoes, belts, and clothes to now food items such as curry powder.
Yes, curry powder. That's right, Archie. You heard right. The police seized several boxes of fake curry at a supermarket in Manchester.
Jamaica Maitland reports.
It looks like curry, may even taste like curry, but is it? Well, according to the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Branch, CTOC, it's not.
Most of our reports, would have mentioned sneakers and pharmaceuticals, but this morning they're moving into the food item, which is curry. And it is a sad day for us because these criminals, I call them criminals, they have no care whatsoever about the human element. All they care about is making money.
Head of the Intellectual Property Rights Unit, DSP Victor Barrett, says the goods were found at a supermarket in Manchester on Wednesday. According to DSP Barrett, although the curry powder bears the same packaging of a popular local brand, the content inside the package was reportedly not made by the rights holder.
When you buy a curry and you're not sure what the process is or the process that they put the curry through, you don't know how it is done. So there is no guarantee that you're buying a curry with a certain standard as opposed to buying a curry from the rightful owner.
The goods were estimated to be 3.2 million Jamaican dollars. The police couldn't readily say how many of the curry powder was sold already or even who bought it. The issue with products like these is that the public oftentimes don't realize until it's too late. Then there's the issue of tracing the origin of the product in the event that someone gets sick. During a recent press conference, head of the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, Lily Claire Bellamy, explained the process, similar to buying a counterfeit shirt.
If you put on that t-shirt and your skin changes color or it starts to peel off, who are you going to go to for redress? It has no owner. So you cannot follow. So there's no redress for you as a consumer if you utilize a good that has no real owner.
So how then can the public know the difference? CTOC says it's ramping up public awareness sessions island-wide. In the meantime, it's urging citizens to purchase from reputable sources. Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
Okay, Annie, go ahead, speak.
Yeah, they're saying that they're now moving towards food, which is not, this is not just recent, because remember they had the fake rice.
Yes.
They had fake Milo,
yes.
fake fish, a lot of fake stuff that they have and people still supporting them. And remember, one lady went to one restaurant and they folded napkin like a piece of chicken and put in her plate, or a man or whoever went and bought. So this is not new with the curry. It's just a continuous saga, and people are still being duped by them.
Yeah.
We're still supporting them.
The reason why this is extremely serious, there is no way China would allow something like this from an outside entity to carry out stuff like this in China. They wouldn't have. They wouldn't have. You couldn't be doing this in China, but yet we have them doing this in our country unchecked. Unchecked. Right now, as we speak, how much other things that China has been doing is the very serious cause to concern. Now, watch the next clip. We have history of these things. Now, without any delay, let us play this. Watch this other clip.
Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch, CTOC, says it has had to increase its vigilance of the sale of counterfeit goods as unscrupulous persons have been getting more creative. And this follows an operation in downtown Kingston yesterday where offenders were operating right under the cops' nose.
Thursday morning's operation on East Queen Street in downtown Kingston yielded the usual items, knockoff versions of clothes and shoes from popular brands. But for CTOC's Assistant Superintendent Victor Barrett, this operation was unique.
Unique because it is across from two police establishments. You have the Kingston Central and the CTOC headquarters. And the CTOC headquarters is where my office is, the counterfeit department, the trafficking. You understand me? So it is right in our face.
According to ASP Barrett, this establishment has been operating for some time at the location, but he believes, like several other entities that deal in counterfeit goods, the owners have been using some cunning methods to hide their dealings and elude the cops next door.
Even at this establishment, yesterday they opened early, today they open late, tomorrow they might open late. So they stagger their opening hours. And and also based on their business model, where they use their phones. So they don't, in my view, they don't rely heavily on the walking traffic. They use the phone to conduct the business.
Since the start of the year, CTOC has arrested several persons for the offense through a number of operations. Over $200 million of counterfeit goods have been seized. ASP Barrett says the operators were arrested and $5 million worth of fake goods were seized at this operation. He notes that the dangers of counterfeit products is the main reason CTOC remains resolute in their operations.
The dollar value is not what is important to us. It's the fact that we value our citizens and we have a job to do and we are enforcing the law. And as I always said, that we don't know, what they use to make these shoes, right? The issue of, the coronavirus now, it is a cause for concern. So we all have to open our eyes and be sure that you buy the branded product.
As for the brazen attempt to carry out their illicit trade next door to the police,
it is telling us that these individuals, they don't care, for one, and two, they probably have no respect for the law, and they feel as if they can just sell their wares just about anywhere and get away with it. But I can tell you, even if it is one pair of shoe, once you use that trademark without the authorization of a brand owner, it becomes a breach. And with our law, right, it is still a crime.
Shoe program.
Well, you see, these are the situations that we are speaking about. Now let us get into some more excitement and some disgrace after disgrace upon disgrace. Now, this next clip, as it relates to this particular person, never surprised me, right? As it relates to this person's behavior, right? So let us present this in terms of, but when we talk about certain politicians and persons who are politically representing us, there are differences between politicians and those persons who are politically representing us. But look at this sort of reckless behavior. Listen up, people.
You can't sick and tired of me and you call me liar yesterday. No? You cannot sick and tired of me and you call me a liar yesterday.
I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to fucking hear from you.
So how you can want to hear from me and you call me liar yesterday? So I'm not answer you. A bad man government. And you're bad too. All right.
Don't come to me unless you know your facts.
Minister, hear me now. No? I don't want you cuss me no bad word number one, and I don't want you tell me say me not have no facts. I don't want you to do that. First of all, you build the largest investment you have made in Westmoreland. Close to $3 billion is to give us 3 brand new facilities. Number one, you give us a new jail in Frome. Number two, where you want to call a station or a headquarters or whatever in Savlamar. But you need, you know what you need it for do? You need it for check the plan. Where on the plan, it says that you're putting a holding area at the headquarters in Savlamar. Where you're making a holding area there for? Where you hold there? Chicken, bird or cow? It must be prisoner.
Why don't you become the MP?
No.
Since you know everything and you're the head cook and bottle washer for everything. Why don't you become the MP then?
You sure you're bright? You sure you're feisty? You sure you're bright? But all right. So I'm not head and cook or bottle washer anything. But for sure, I'll be the next MP. That is for sure.
Since you're the one delegating and telling me what I must do and how I must run things. You do it.
Yeah, but here you know, you're telling me, say me if you do it. Me never know after you cuss all them the bad word that you could have in a Ministry of National Security.
Let me tell you something. You go and you play this back to anybody in the Jamaica Labour Party. Because I'm sick and tired of you. Okay?
Minister, let me tell you something. You're rude. You know that? You're rude. The largest investment that you have made in the parish of Westmoreland is to give us 3 jailhouses and a headquarters. The people of Westmoreland want water, you never give away water. That know you cost bad word for, because we need water down there. You never give away a hospital, because we need a hospital down there. And that know why you cost bad word for. You never give us a school down there, and that know why you cost bad word for. And that me why you cost bad word for. But do me I beg you, no come and tell the people them and come with your semantics about I know jailhouse and this and that. Every headquarters in Jamaica have a jailhouse for all people, have a station for all people. You go and hold people there to interrogate them and question them. You have one downtown Savlamar, and you're going to have one up here at Landale, the best cultural center, one of the best cultural center in Jamaica. Uno go and uno put a station there. You put a headquarters there. May I use for your pretty word. But do me I beg you, no call back my phone and cuss no bad word. You hear? Have a good day. Bright.
Because I'm sick and tired of you. Oh.
You can't sick and tired of.
No, people, no, to be honest, it is disgraceful. This is extremely disgraceful. That you have someone who claims that they are representing us politically. And this is her example, right, as it relates to representational politics. Mr. Ian Ayres just called to have a rational dialogue, right? In listening to this conversation, what did Ian Ayres communicated to her that provoked her in such a way to react the way how she had reacted? In cursing out the man. And this is the sort of representation that you are getting from Juliet Cuthbert. It's a shame and disgrace that you're in Parliament, Juliet. Naturally, shame and disgrace on you. Unbelievable. Janet Jones, this is what happened when you sell your vote. They owe you nothing. Extremely right, Janet. This is how Juliet Cuthbert decided to represent us. The simple conversation that Ian Ayres was communicating, right, is to say, okay, as it relates to what you are doing here in building, whether police station or whatever she was building, Ian Ayres is saying that it is non-progressive towards building Jamaica economy. Then if you did put a health center there, that would be more appropriately accepted. Now remember, you know, it is Andrew Holness on a public platform said every ghetto youth is a star. And then the very same Prime Minister who believes that every ghetto youth is a star is building more prisons, more jail, rather than find creative means to save our youths, rather than to spend as much focus and education to educate our youths. What this government has done, this government has damaged our education system. Is member of parliament then for the Ministry of Education, Rural Reid. What did he do? Plunder our education system by looting what he had looted. And now it is the same Andrew Holness government is trying to protect Rural Reid. Look at that. We have seen recent clip where Rural Reid is on the political campaign. What does that say to us? The blatant disrespect and disregard in our face. Right? So then when you look at that, you are seeing the disrespect. All right, someone is saying that it is an edited video. No, it is not edited video, and I'm going to show you the evidence. The reason why when I first saw that clip, right, I did not touch it because I thought the same thing that you have thought as it relates to might be someone edited. And that is one of the reasons why, remember, you know, we're not come over mystic sensation. You know. We do proper research. Now, let me show you that the video is not edited. Let me give you right away to appease your mind, right? Because I understand, when the first time I saw the clip, I believe it was edited. And when the clip was sent to me, right, by my trusted friend, I said, you know what, let me do some background investigation. Because, you know, people might just think that, okay, this is an edited thing. And when I did my background investigation, I was shocked to know that this is really true. And so then, as I said, you know how mystic sensation. So let me give you the supporting document to show you it is actually true. No.
She was cursing somebody else.
No.
Okay.
It is not someone else. Let me give you the evidence, my dear.
I think I know which one you want.
Yes.
Demands apology.
Yes, exactly. Let me show you. Here it is. Here it is. Here's the evidence, my dear. Cuthbert Flynn demand apology from over edited defamatory conversation. It is not edited. What she said to Mr. Hayes is what Mr. Hayes reported. Here's the evidence. Cuthbert Flynn demands an apology from Hayes over edited defamatory conversation. Posted by Chevron Campbell, 26 June 2024. State Minister for National Security, Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, is calling for a formal apology from PNP Vice President Ian Ayres for comment she deems defamatory. The allegation stems from a video Mr. Ayers circulated across multiple social media platforms. Ms. Cuthbert Flynn says if Mr. Ayers does not comply, she will initiate legal proceedings against him. There you know, go on. But we hear upon the clip. So let me play it and make you hear it.
The minister made the call for a formal apology through a statement from White Walters Law dated Wednesday, June 26, 2024. Andrea White Walters, the attorney representing Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, says that on or about June 19, 2024, Ian Hales posted a video on various social media accounts. The statement says that in these videos, Hales used audio of Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn's voice from a private conversation several years ago. It's alleged that Hales then deliberately and maliciously posted an edited video and used the said audio to give the impression that the state minister was engaged in a telephone conversation with him. The letter says Hales's malicious and false act was an attack on Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn's character. It says the video was intended to cause harm, damage, and to lower her reputation in the eyes of the public. Ms. White Walters says her client categorically denies ever having any conversation with Hales whatsoever in which he spoke to him in the manner in which he would wish to have the public believe. She says the video continues to be used as a tool to mislead and deceive the public in a misguided attempt to further a political agenda. The statement also says the use of their client's voice in this manner is a breach of the Cybercrimes Act. Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn is demanding a formal and public apology posted on all of Hales's social media platforms. If Ian Hales fails to comply, legal action will be taken against him. Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
Okay. So, my dear, here you have, right, the evidence. So, if Juliet Cuthbert want to claim that Mr. Ian Ayers have edited her conversation that he has for several years, if you notice, people, the sequence of conversation, the chronological sequence as it relates to what Mr. Ayers was saying and how she was responding to exactly what Mr. Ayers said, couldn't have been an edited version. Because the sequence or the line of conversation, right, are in sync as it relates to, all right, let me just give you an example. If I ask you that, when are you going to the market? And you said, Byron, I am going to the market tomorrow. That two-side conversation in sync, so that cannot be edited. If I ask you, Mr. John, how many marbles do you have? And you respond to me, Byron, I have 15 marbles. The in sync of the conversation, based on the chronological sequence of the conversation, that cannot be an edited version as what Juliet Cuthbert is claiming. Juliet Cuthbert is a diabolical liar. Right? And so then when you listen to the sequence of the conversation, right, the in-line, right, the parity, the parallel between the conversation, you realize that that is straightforward. Right? So then, in terms of saying that the clip released long ago, all right, let me pick out one item out of the clip. As it relates to the construction of the police station, was that long ago? That wasn't long ago. That wasn't long ago. This is recent. Right? With the police station, that wasn't long ago. So if she's going to claim that it is long ago, right? The construction as it relates to the police station, is that long ago? No. So then how is she going to say it is long ago? Okay. Mr. Ayers is not going to apologize. Then ask her to go and sue Mr. Ayers. Right? And then you're going to hear the outcome of the case. simple, right? Because that station that they were talking about, recent, that is recent. Okay.
They're asking if you can play it again.
Yeah.
Oh, one person was asking if you can play it.
Okay, so let me play it again. And,
just leave that one alone and move on.
Okay.
Just leave that one alone, please.
All right. Let us move. All right. Now, let us read this, right, from what is displayed here. Jamaica Observer. Government intensified push to support vulnerable Jamaicans. I want to play something, and let me explain before I play it. You are going to see how hypocritical this person is. I mean, highly hypocritical. As if they don't remember what they had done to people. But let us get into it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Government intensifying push to support vulnerable Jamaicans, says Minister. And look who is saying it. People, look who is saying it. Kingston, Jamaica. The Jamaica Labour Party-led government is intensifying efforts to bring more assistance to Jamaicans who encounter challenges but do not have the financial resources necessary to respond adequately. Party Representative Colonel Charles Jr., who currently has responsibility for labor and social security, gave the assurance as he addressed a Jamaica Labour Party Area Council one meeting in Fletcher's Land on Tuesday night, which took place under the theme West Kingston Live, We Choose Jamaica. Here it on, people. Charles Jr. says the Andrew Holness-led administration has put in place a structure to make sure that as many Jamaicans in need as possible are supported and a strong labor market is developed. He described the 30% increase in the current budget for the program of advancement through health and education part program as a signal of administration willingness to do what it can to increase the capacity of Jamaicans to cope with the cost of living challenges. We also put in place career workshops so that your children can know how to write resumes and how to choose jobs and where to get training, and that they are able to access on the job training, Charles Jr. said. He also referred to the government's recent increase in the minimum wage. I remember when everybody else in the Caribbean was growing and we had to wonder, is what happened to us in the 1990s. There go with the critical politics. Jamaica had the highest unemployment rate of more than 16%, but under the Jamaica Labour Party, after we just come out of pandemic, the hardest time ever, we have the lowest unemployment, over 4.2%. Charles Jr. Continues to say, which we all know that starting his line. He noted that when Holness administration returned to the office in 2016, the national minimum wage was 6,000, but has since been increased twice and is now 15,000. What I need to ask you, the 6,000 in 2015, right, under Portia Simpson, how much things could it buy as opposed to what the 15,000 can buy now? So you need to speak the truth as it relates to how inflation has risen under Jamaica Labour Party government. This is the evidence of a kind of government that is looking out for people. And let me show you, Colonel Charles, how you are looking out for people. Let me show you on the next clip how you and your family looking out for people. Take away. Let us show Colonel Charles how Colonel Charles is looking out for people. That's why I'm saying these people hypocritical. You understand? They are not remembering what they have done. Yes. They're not remembering what they have done.
What's in the media recently of an area of disputed land in eastern St. Thomas called Old Piera. Residents there are disputing the claims of ownership of the land by former Member of Parliament, Pernell Charles Sr. His daughter, MP Dr. Michelle Charles, found herself in the middle of confrontation with irate residents while the area was visited by opposition leader Mark Golding. Melvin Pennant has that story.
When our news team visited Old Piera in eastern St. Thomas, this is what we found: irate residents.
Yes, I feel it. They can't take it from me. I rebel with them. We don't want nothing like that, oh yeah. Yes, I feel it, please. When me come last week and they say me going to pick them as swimmer and a kid. Me never see this before. So me don't know where Pernell and Miss Charles and Bo Daddy place. Where Daddy get here? Where Daddy born from? Daddy not born here.
They claim that they have been disrupted from gainful employment by the owner of the land, former Member of Parliament, Pernell Charles Sr. The disgruntled citizens recently reached out to the opposition leader, Mark Golding.
I'm here today at the invitation of local community members. As leader of the opposition, they reached out to me and said that they were very unhappy about what's happening here at Old Piera. So I visited, and essentially what has happened is that the beach and an island off the coast, which is accessible because the water is not very deep, which had been used as a campsite for an eco-friendly camp operation where persons from the local community were making a good living or hustling off of it because they could cook, they could supply food and beverage and other services needed by the visitors who were camping there. That had been shut down by the person who claims to be the owner, former MP Pernell Charles, and signs have been erected saying it's all private property and so on. The beach is also a beach where fishermen go out to sea from, and there's a right-of-way which they have used.
Mr. Golding sided with the residents.
Money can't buy this. This is priceless. And if the community has always had the benefit of coming here to recreate, to enjoy themselves, cook a little food, converse, meditate, what I mean. With the MP should not allow that. She must protect the people and their rights to use this.
Eastern St. Thomas Member of Parliament, Dr. Michelle Charles, also visited the area on the same day.
When I got there, I was quite surprised because I saw the council caretaker for the Dalby Division and Mr. Beckford, which is I think he's a liaison officer, and he accused me and my family of stealing land.
Mr. Charles Sugarland, that's madness. Mr. Beckford, who have taken enough, so no one take this. We will fight to the bitter end to defend this from the people. You and your father need to go back to Central and live in Eastern St. Thomas. You have taken enough land in all these parcels of land that the former MP is claiming ownership of. We have not seen no paperwork from him, neither have we seen any title to say that he is the owner to support his claim.
This was Dr. Charles' response to the accusations.
So I said to him, Mr. Beckford, call the police. The reality of it is, it's very easy for someone to look up who owns what property. It's something that you can simply go and do. And I told the leader of the opposition that he can go ahead and do that. Everyone has access to find out who owns what property. But for me, I am grateful that the government of Jamaica has taken up under their wing the parish of St. Thomas, in particular, Eastern St. Thomas.
She said there are governmental development plans in the pipeline for the parish.
We are a diamond in the rough. And we have so many plans for the people of St. Thomas, and all that the government has planned is in this book. So I made little copies and I circulated them around. And you can go to the Ministry of Tourism and find out what we are planning to do for Eastern St. Thomas.
Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
You know, people, every time I look on that clip, be honest, it hurt me. It burned me. And just imagine when, you know, in terms of that clip that I played prior to this one, right, where her brother, right, Colonel Charles Jr., right, is now coming out, right, and acting sincerely as if he sincerely care for Jamaican people, right? How can you acting now as if you care for Jamaican people after you have Jamaican people in St. Thomas who doing their aquatourism, making money for their families? The land that they have been on for over 20, 30, 40 years. This is no joke, you know, people. This is no joke. And the people who voted for you, and as a result that you are in parliament and you can manipulate the system, you have manipulated the system, right? And kick the people off their lands. It is a shame and disgrace to what you people are doing to Jamaica. Shame and disgrace. And now you're coming out because you are facing now a general election and you're coming out with all the promises. All the promises. Bro, God teaching you well. One thing for sure, man. Bro, God taught you well. Right? The things that we would do to poor people, beach access is another problem. The poor Jamaican people don't have free access to the beaches because government, the Andrew Holness government, right, manipulate these people, giving the prime lands, selling out the beach lands, right, of course, to their elites, PSOJ, and that is one of the reasons why PSOJ is not running out or speaking out against Andrew Holness' statutory declaration, because PSOJ is satisfied in terms of what the Andrew Holness-led government giving to them and the long reach of access that they have, right, to our birthright. They are manipulating it as it relates to the wide access that they have given by this government, treating our people as second-class citizens, treating our people as second. Nowhere else in the Caribbean, right, that other Caribbean partners, our neighbors, right, don't have access to their beaches. But in Jamaica, we have been treated as second-class citizens. The level of corruption from this government. Now let us get into our next clip as we trot on and expose more of the corruption.
Okay.
So this contract for 96.8 million was signed shortly after Petrojam was on the verge of concluding a contract for the same work for $29.8 million.
First of all, let me ask a question. Which construction company is this that's mentioned here that got the direct contracting?
The company is Construction Solutions Limited.
Construction Solutions Limited. Is this one of the famous bushing contractors that were utilized in the emergency bushing?
Mr. Chairman, can we just ask you, sir, to direct the deliberation here?
I notice you're very antsy about that. It's the first thing we've heard from you all morning.
The answer is yes. Mr. Chairman, I was comfortable all along, Mr. Chairman. I was comfortable all along.
I'm not sure why the government members of the committee are objecting to my asking who the identity of these contractors. Obviously, this is a very sensitive subject.
Yes.
And you know, Mr. Chairman, it's interesting that these direct emergency contracting methodologies are consistently used with certain preferred contractors. And I am not going to be part of any conspiracy to cover up that fact. Let everybody know who gets into these sweetheart deals that when it comes before this committee, we're going to expose them at least to public scrutiny. And they must understand that it is not going to stay in the dark when these preferred deals are struck. This is taxpayers' money we're talking about, and we must expose it. Don't commit acts of corruption if you don't want it exposed. Simple as that. It's not political.
Now, don't commit act of corruption if you don't want it to expose. And I'm glad how Peter Bunting is pushing against the corruption and calling them out because they deserve to be called out. And I'm glad how people, I want you to understand as it relates to how Peter Bunting is standing and defending taxpayers' money. Right? And this is what we are talking about when we're talking about good representation in our political system. There is Peter Bunting calling them out. The sweetheart deals that they are giving to their friends, families, and you name it, the political kickbacks. Right? Out of many bless of herself. Yeah, land grab and all of them things, the political kickbacks. And so then we see the high level of corruption, the breach of procurement rules, procurement guidelines. We see we are $700 billion, right? Cannot able to be tracked appropriately as it relates to our health sector. It's sickening. How many money being spent as a result of our health sector, and yet we are not seeing the benefits thereof. So many people are complaining about the lack of care from our health sector. And it goes on and goes on and goes on. It's evidently so, that people are suffering. We have seen so many clips of people, right, suffering, highlighting their experiences, what they have faced as it relates to our healthcare. We have seen United States of America in support and stay parallel as it relates to what we have been saying in calling out the corruption, calling out the less care that our people, that meeting out to our people within the healthcare. And so the United States stand parallel to say, let us issue a laboratory advisory to show the government that we too are in accordance as it relates to what many of the bloggers are saying. Evidently so, our people in the United States, right, have felt and have experienced what they are speaking about. Now, the corruption continues. As you see that members of parliament setting up shell companies and giving contracts to themselves to benefit themselves. People, it's corruption. It's clear corruption. As you heard about the sweetheart deals that Peter Bunting spoke about. But look at this sweetheart deal that I am going to display for you. Look on this sweetheart deal. I said when we talk, it's just like our treasury, right, becomes such a feeding tree. Their personal piggy banks for the corruptors who take our money at will. So when you see situations like this, You know that the assault continues to happen on our treasury. Let us read. $400 million lease being paid by Tax of Jamaica for 2 unoccupied properties. Tax Administration Jamaica has been paying close to $400 million to lease 2 properties despite failing to occupy the building up to August last year. This is how taxpayers have been suffering the consequences, right, of these corruptors. The revelation emerged from an audit conducted by the Auditor General, the report of which was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. The Auditor General conducted a special audit of Tax Administration Jamaica's leasing arrangements in response to allegations which came to the attention of the department. Reports are that TAJ was seeking a property to relocate its tax office in Antonoma Bay, St. Mary. It was further alleged that the sitting member of Parliament, through its private company, let us read back this and read out the corruption. Let us read back this and read the corruption. Let the people understand. Let it sleeps in the joints and bones of the people. To let the people understand what we are talking about, what we are highlighting as it relates to Andrew Holness-led government. It was further alleged that the sitting member of Parliament, through his private company, bought a commercial building a few meters from the existing tax office, which was subsequently leased to TAJ for approximately $700,000 per month. Now, my rational people, this is open, bare-faced corruption, nepotism, cronyism, and skullduggery. It was also alleged that although approximately 8 months rent had been paid, the building was not yet occupied by TAJ and renovation works were yet to begin. What level of care? What level of care for taxpayers under such inflation, facing the pains of inflation? Now when you're talking about your $15,000 increase minimum wage, you tell me, Mr. Pernell Charles, if you want to compare the 6,000 minimum wage in Portia Simpson time in terms of what that 6,000 could have bought, then your 15,000 right now cannot buy it. What goes to tell you, Mr. Pernell Charles Jr.? It tells you that the rate of inflation is killing the people of Jamaica. Your minimum wage is 15,000, but yet your 15,000, Mr. Pernell Charles Jr., can buy. But the 6,000 minimum wage in Portia Simpson time can buy. But it doesn't only stop there. The mayhem of corruption continues as our treasury scream every day by corruptors who feels it fit to raid it as their personal piggy bank. It was alleged that although approximately 8 months rent had been paid, the building was not yet occupied by TAJ and renovation works were yet to begin. Based on the allegations, the Auditor General sought to assess whether there were breaches in the TAJ policies and procedures as well as government guidelines. Despite discovering that the allegations were true, the Auditor General found no evidence that the sitting MP interfered with the TAJ procurement process. Stop right here. Stop right there. Where the corruption lies, madam, is that him being a member of Parliament, right, should not put himself as it relates to getting this contract. This is nepotism. This is nepotism. It did not meet out in the bidding process, so other persons can be bidding on it. So don't think that we don't know these things. This is corruption. Additionally, the Auditor General found that the TAJ did not receive permission from the Commissioner of Lands prior to entering into the lease agreement for the Anoto Bay property. That is where I'm going. The reports also pointed out that TAJ is yet to occupy a property lease in Greenvale, Manchester, although it spent a total of $356,802,893 over the last 3 years. This is what they are doing with taxpayers' monies. The Auditor General said as August 23, despite the completion of the proposal of renovation and furnishing in June 2019 and the first lease payment in September 2020, the necessary retrofitting and renovation works had not yet started as of August 2023. You tell me, my people, you tell me. When we read these things and go through these things and see what our Jamaican people are facing as it relates to inflation, here again, Colonel Charles Jr. This is why we are meeting these inflations. The Auditor General noted that there are 2 other locations within the Mandeville area that the TAJ occupied, costing the government $51.2 million per annum. Per annum, you are going to tell me that there's not much care. This money that being paid out per annum could now construct a place and complete it. Right? And this is all. They are ripping us, robbing us. And no wonder you can have Rural Read come back out, store on the campaign trail after Rural Read done his damage. Things like these. TAJ's monthly lease payment for the properties combined as of August 2023 was more than 11 million. Tax Administration Jamaica said it sought to relocate its operations in Mandeville to the 42,300 square foot location to eliminate challenges in the management and delivery of taxpayer service caused by operating the other 2 locations. My God, take that away. Our Jamaican people is feeling the brunt of the suffrage. Now let us move on. The wickedness and the cruelty that been taking place here. Now let us step a little bit further as it relates to Devon Fletcher after 8 years suffering. They have all the goodies given out now that an election time is coming. We are as Jamaican going boot them with the ballots, of course. Of course. Now let us play for tonight. I'm just gonna play this 3 more clips, and then that will be it, right, for the night. So let us get into this clip.
Mark Golding, PNP, has strongly criticized Prime Minister Andrew Holness' initiative to combat fake news on social media, arguing it possesses a significant threat to freedom of expression and privacy in Jamaica. Now, Mark Golding, PNP, is tackling Andrew Holness for the same reason I am tackling Andrew Holness, because, as I said, and as you know, Mark Golding, PNP, said, while addressing misinformation is important, Andrew Holness' approach goes too far and it undermines the fundamental democratic principles and constitutional rights. PNP voiced concerns over what they perceive to be selective enforcement because Andrew Holness ignores misinformation spread by members of his own JLP government while focusing on opposition-related content, which is a double standard. Now, Mark Golding, PNP, said that there was a lack of impartiality in the government approach to tackling fake news. PNP called for clarity on Andrew Holness' government policy and legal framework regarding social media regulation,
All right. So you see why Andrew Holness running out with that? Now, this one is a later one too, you know. Let us play that clip as well. Right?
Okay.
The opposition is calling out the Prime Minister's selective outrage as he continues to ignore fake news spread by his own party members, particularly Deputy Speaker Heroy Clark's violation against the leader of the opposition. This blatant double standard exposes the government's inability to enforce policies impartially. We are forcefully condemning Prime Minister Andrew Holness' intent to clamp down on what he calls fake news on social media. We view it as a direct threat to free expression and privacy. We note that while the Prime Minister was addressing misinformation recently, his approach came off dangerously as an overreach. It's an undermining of the democratic principles and the constitutional rights of Jamaicans. Recent alarming statements by other members of his cabinet, such as former Minister Robert Morgan's claim of accessing IP addresses and Minister Darrell Baz's threats, clearly indicate an assault on democracy and privacy at the cabinet level. The opposition is calling out the Prime Minister's selective outrage as he continues to ignore fake news spread by his own party members, particularly Deputy Speaker Heroy Clark's violation against the leader of the opposition. This blatant double standard exposes the government's inability to enforce policies impartially. We're demanding that the government clarify its policy and the legal framework that supports it, because we have to ensure that transparency and accountability are secured on behalf of the Jamaican people. All individuals, including government officials, must be held to the same standard to prevent abuse of power under this new measure that the Prime Minister seems to be thinking about. We staunchly defend the democratic values and constitutional rights of Jamaicans. We demand that the government reconsider this approach and uphold our nation's fundamental freedoms.
Visit our website at pnp.org.jm or check us out on Facebook at Jamaica PNP.
Right? The clear authoritarianism of Andrew Holness, double standard and foolishness that Andrew Holness is doing. Look on this next clip, and this is now recent, right? To show the hypocriteness of Andrew Holness. Look on this clip. Let us play.
I want to also big up not only the workers of the Jamaica Labour Party and the supporters who are gathered here today, but I want to salute the bloggers of the Jamaica Labour Party. We have our bloggers on social media. We have like Italian, we have Camille, we have Keisha Mack, who it is not every time that members of the Jamaica Labour Party are able to defend themselves. But our bloggers, they step in and they defend the Labour Party and they spread the good news about the works of the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. I want to make some noise for the bloggers of the Jamaica Labour Party. Show our labour rights. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Jamaica.
Now, people want to hear that? Now, I want to hear what Andrew Holness have to say about this. Because one of those bloggers that he called out, Keisha Mack, is one of the biggest liars on social media. Right? Keisha Mack is parallel to Andrew Holness. Anytime Keisha Mack open up her mouth, is a lie come through that. The only time Keisha Mack doesn't tell a lie is when she's not speaking. And yet, Andrew Holness, right? And Fitz Henley, endorse that. So when we are talking and speaking the truth, we have been seen as anti-government. What we are talking about and demanding is good governance, Mr. Andrew Holness. It's good governance. So when you're threatening to suppress the freedom of speech, you're fundamentally wrong. And you're exhibiting to us that you're a dictator. Right? So while you're telling us to silence, you are telling your bloggers, like Keisha Mark, right, to go out there and spew social media with lies and defame people. That's what you're doing. Keisha Mark is one of the biggest liars on social media. Anytime Keisha Mark is speaking on social media, all what people need to do is to fact check Keisha Mark. And you will see that most of what Keisha Mark says is simply not true. Now, the Prime Minister speaks about Pegasus spyware. Right? And so then we just want to highlight for the final clip and let people understand what is the Pegasus spyware. And I want people to look at it and listen to the capability of that spyware. I have no evidence that Andrew Holness is using it. But since he has spoken in that light, we have to research it and make our people have an understanding of what Pegasus is so that our people can be educated. So then for our final clip tonight, I am introducing the Pegasus to you. All right.
With just a single text, it can bypass your phone's security and install spyware that grants complete access to your device.
It can access every message you've ever sent. It can access every message you've ever received. It can access every photo, every video, every email. It can turn on your microphone. It can turn on the microphone even when you're not using a phone call and just record what you're doing in the room. It can turn on your camera. It can record what's on your screen. It can access your GPS. It can monitor your location.
And it can do all of this without you ever knowing. The spyware technology that makes this possible is called Pegasus.
Pegasus is probably the most advanced piece of spyware ever developed. It is effectively the most invasive form of surveillance imaginable. Any idea that you had that aspects of your life could be kept private and on the mobile phone are wrong.
So if you are someone who thinks that you're safe because you use WhatsApp, which is end-to-end encrypted, or you use Signal, it really is meaningless once that Pegasus is on your phone.
Pegasus can infect both iOS and Android while remaining virtually undetectable.
So one of the ways that Pegasus will attack your phone is through what's called a zero-day vulnerability. This is a vulnerability that the phone's manufacturer doesn't yet know exists.
Pegasus is the main product of a company called NSO Group, which is an Israeli surveillance company.
So the people who are using this spyware are government clients. These will be governments around the world that the NSO Group have sold a copy of Pegasus to.
A Guardian investigation can now reveal widespread abuse of Pegasus by NSO's government clients.
The reason this investigation is so extraordinary is that we at The Guardian have gained access through Forbidden Stories to a treasure trove, tens of thousands of records.
The leaked records include the phone numbers of thousands of people who have been selected as potential targets by governments with access to Pegasus.
Before, we had an inkling that this technology was being used in an abusive way. But now the doors have been just thrown wide open, and we have a much greater insight into the scale of the abuse that has occurred.
Just because a number appears in this list, it doesn't mean it was definitely hacked. But in some cases, we've been able to go and check. We've done forensics on the phone that the person was using at the time. And in dozens of cases, we found traces of either an attempted or a successful Pegasus infection.
What we know about NSO Group and what they've said for years is that this is a law enforcement tool. But I think what our investigations really revealed is the extent to which that is just a complete, fantasy narrative.
The implications of this software being used widely are effectively an end to privacy for the people who are targeted by it. That has very, very serious ramifications for how people who have legitimate secrets, which is everyone, go about living their lives. The most serious implications of something like Pegasus is that it makes it much more unlikely that a dictatorial regime will become a democracy. Because those were already regimes and systems that were obsessive about trying to monitor their populations so that they could control them and prevent them from, rising up and overthrowing them. And this technology exponentially increases your capacity to do that.
I do believe it poses a greater threat to democracy. It's exposing that a lot of these technologies that we think are meant to keep us safer on our phones, and even if we're somewhat aware of it, that they're really not keeping us safe.
All right, people. So that was the final clip, and to build our awareness as it relates to Pegasus. And as I said, I have no evidence that the Prime Minister is using it, but I am just building the awareness as it relates to the understanding of what Pegasus can do, the capability that it can do. You understand? It's definitely an encroachment on secrecy. And as a matter of fact, it can access, a lot of stuff without you being knowing, right? Based on what we have just heard as it relates to the utilization of the Pegasus, right? But that is just for awareness. And as I said, no evidence that he's using it, but just for awareness. All right, Tony. All right.
Yes, Charmaine, he was acting up upstairs, making a lot of noise and crying and stuff, so I have to go get him. Normally, he's with me at this time of the evening, so he was fussing, so I had to go get him. Okay, so you're finished with the discussion. Okay, so thank you so much for that insight.
Thank you.
Conversation, really appreciate, and discussion, really appreciate it. Thank you so much to everyone who contributed to the discussion and made it meaningful and insightful and interactive discussion. Really appreciate each and everyone, and thank you so much for continuing to support the movement. Rayfon, welcome. Good night. Good night. If the game's finished, because we wanted to just end so that people who want to finish watching the game can concentrate on the game, and then we'll do Jeopardy next week. So we are just gonna does anyone want to call in? Let me just open the phone lines first before we go. Let me open the phone lines. Megawatt, what were you watching? Was it the game? Was it racing? No, hold on, Tiffany. I know the Megawatt was talking about some race or something that was going on. Oh, the 100-meter finals, he says, are on now. Because I know there was something going on that people were sort of interested in as well. So we're not gonna keep you guys any longer so that you can go and enjoy the rest of the race. So yes, Stephanie, it's gonna be next week then, because a lot of people are interested in watching the races, and this guy here just is acting up. So we're not gonna bother with Jeopardy tonight.
Okay.
So until next week, guys, really appreciate, don't do that, no. Really appreciate each and every one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you. Thanks, Mitchie. Happy Saturday, Mitchie. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome, Lloyd. Thank you so much for joining in. So, guys,
bless yourself, Lloyd.
Have a wonderful and blessed rest of the weekend, and stay safe and safe travel on the gravel until next week. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.